Mira, Rachel? Test, test. As you flip these, can you flip these too? You sure taking notes isn't better? Too late now. A more meaning go back to the map. I'll say map. Say next, whatever. Alrighty, let's do this. It was a tragic accident. We certainly hope those. We hope that doesn't happen. All right, welcome everyone. Please grab a seat. We're about to get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Do I need more volume on the mic or we're good? No, we're good. We're good. We're fine. Just from the team, who has the wireless mics? I'm just curious. 1 and 2. Okay, thank you. And where's the corded mic? Okay. So just going to go over a few quick housekeeping rules. This is going to be, this is really meant to be an interactive event. Sorry, one second. There we go. Sorry about that. Really meant to be an interactive event. It's really meant to get your feedback on which stations we're going to prioritize next to make accessible. There'll be lots of opportunities for you to speak. We're going to go through different boroughs, different regions. We'll ask you for your opinion. We'll share data. It's a lot of information. That's why we've given you the presentation in your hand so you can follow along. It'll also be up on the screens. We will try to get everyone's comment on every specific region. If we're running out of time on a specific region, we will give out comment cards. Can we pass out some of the comment cards down the aisles already? Just pass them down the aisle so folks have in advance. You know, that way your comment can be taken orally. If you write it on a card, we will also take it and tally it up later. As you'll see, there's lots of criteria that go into making the decisions on the next stations, but it's actually a pretty exciting time. As you know, for the last more than 20 years, we've lived under the 100 key station plan. Under the 100 key station program, the stations that we made accessible were selected by statute, right? It was part of the law, so there was not a lot of discretion in terms of what stations come next. But now we're in a place with the Fast Forward plan where we get to talk to you, talk to the community, look at stations throughout the system, and make the decisions as to which stations go next. And this will be one of our community engagements about that. So without further ado, I'm going to invite up President Andy Byford to give a few comments about the Fast Forward plan, and please welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Good evening, everyone. First up, thank you for coming. It's great to see so many people here tonight. It's also nice to see a lot of familiar faces here tonight. Advocates, customers, people from Transit Center and other advocacy groups. And a big shout out and thank you to my colleagues, particularly Alex, for setting this event up. So I've been here just over a year. It's just over a year now since I stood outside this building on January the 16th of 2017. And on January the 16th, 2017, I committed publicly to say that I would be making accessibility one of the 4 pillars, the 4 priorities of Fast Forward, that it would take some time, and it will, and that it required funding, and it still will, more than ever. But I hope that you've seen in the year that has elapsed that I meant what I said. I think actions speak louder than words. The fact that we are here tonight, that we're doing this, that we are consulting with you, that we are talking about a huge ramp up in accessibility by getting these stations or choosing the next raft of stations, I hope is testament to the fact that I meant what I said. Hey, Chris, I meant what I said when I said we would put accessibility first. Another, hopefully, indicator to you that we're serious about what we said back in January of last year is the presence of Alex here tonight as the Senior Accessibility Advisor and a member of my executive. I think that demonstrates that we're serious about this. That's a permanent executive commitment, a first for the MTA. But since Alex was appointed, we've also got a whole team now working with him. We've got Rachel over there, we've got Mira, we've got Sarah floating around here, we've got Yvette, we've got Annika, who were signing you in downstairs. And Jennifer, of course. Jennifer's just joined our team as our specialist writer. She's a writer by profession, and it's fantastic to have Jennifer on our team, who herself was and still is, I believe, a member of Rise and Resist. So we are trying to demonstrate to you that we are absolutely serious about this this very important topic. I actually did a wheelchair. Damn it, I keep still saying that. Wheelchans is the Toronto version. I did an Accessa ride yesterday, which was insightful. It was a pre-booked ride. I did it with Alex and Eli, one of Alex's buddies. And it was very interesting to go through the booking process. They didn't know it was me. But I booked the ride. I used a number. and we did a ride out to a place in Brooklyn, and it was interesting. There was some good stuff about that journey, and there was some bad stuff about that journey, but it was insightful and enlightening for me to see what your reality is day in and day out. So again, we're very serious about this. There's lots of surveys out there, and surveys are good, and effectively we're surveying you tonight, but actions are more important than surveys. But we are in parallel, not just talking about more elevators at stations, we're looking at the whole spectrum of what needs to be done. Platform gaps, be they vertical or horizontal. We're looking at signage. We're looking at making sure the existing elevators, A, stay in service, and B, are clean and fit to use. So that's a priority for my new group station manager structure. There's so many aspects to this accessibility issue, and we are addressing all of them, which is why I found funding and demanded funding for not just for Alex, but for a whole team. So we came here to listen to you, not me, but I do want to do a couple of shout outs. We've got some members of my executive here today. We've got Sally, wherever she went, Sally Librera at the back, Senior Vice President for Subways. Sitting next to her is Rochelle Glazier. Rochelle is the Chief Stations Officer, and sitting next to her is the Chief Customer Officer, Sarah Meyer. Also, and I'm very proud to have him here, and you know what? I'm not surprised that he is here. Is the one board member who's here? I don't believe there's any others, and that's Andrew Albert, who is a huge, huge customer advocate. On our board, Andrew speaks up for you. And he also is on the working group, the accessibility working group. So it's no surprise that he's here tonight because like you and like me, he believes in the cause. So we really look forward to hearing your comments tonight. And I'm just going to be here. I'm going to listen and learn and gladly accept your feedback. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, President Byford. So a couple more introductory points on accessibility before we get started. So as you all have heard at the recent board meeting and also as in some publications, we are starting a new committee here at New York City Transit. It's going to be called the Advisory Committee for Transit Accessibility. It'll be a committee that meets with our team as well as others at the MTA several times a year, provides feedback, lets us bounce ideas off of the committee, and similarly brings ideas to us. So there are applications to become a member of the committee outside. We will send an email to everybody after this meeting, inviting them to participate. Basic application process will ask for a resume and then an interview as well. But we're super excited. It's going to be a way for customers on a regular basis to talk to us about what they're seeing in the system. It'll advise us on issues about subways, buses, and paratransit. And you'll hear everything that we're working on in more detail, not just at the board meeting where you usually get a 5-minute update. And it'll be something new, and it'll really be a collaboration. So we hope that you all apply. We look forward to your feedback. Please feel free to grab an application outside and ask any questions. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of how we're going to go through things tonight. Is there a criteria slide? Sorry, one second. Somewhere? No? It disappeared? No. Can you flip to that one? So as we go through the stations that we're considering to be the next ones to become accessible, we're working with certain criteria. And we previewed some of these criteria for you about 6 or 9 months ago when there was the last meeting where we explained what the Stantec study was studying. So the Stantec study is specifically studying cost and feasibility, meaning we are studying all of our remaining 300 non-accessible stations to see what it would take to make them accessible. And that's looking at, how many elevators, what's the street structure, what's the utilities, is there room in the station, things like that. But that is only one criteria that leads to a station being selected. There's also, we obviously look at transfer points and terminal stations, stations that are very important for our system, and we're going to go through some of those today. Stations that connect to buses and are generally connect to other transit connections. Stations that are next to activity centers, whether it's the Barclay Center or a community center or a museum, or in some cases a medical facility, or a gym or a baseball park or whatever it is. Those are all things that we'll be sharing data with you on. We're looking at ridership. Which stations are generally getting the most ridership? Obviously, that's important because we want to, because we have 50 stations potentially to work with. That's our goal. That's what we've asked for funding for. We want to use them wisely and get the most value out of the stations we select. So we do want to go with stations that have high ridership because that's important. Then we've looked at access ride data. Where are access ride trips happening from the most as a potential factor to consider in selecting the next stations? What about demographics? Where we've looked at some census data. Where are people with disabilities living? Where's the senior population living? And we'll present some of that, as well as cost and complexity, which is what the Stantec study is opining, is giving us analysis on. But very importantly is the top prong that I did not mention yet. It's system-wide coverage. When we met with you all back in August at the CCC meeting, and we took a tally of what criteria you consider most important, it's system-wide coverage. We know there's a lot of quote-unquote transit deserts as far as accessible stations go, and you all agreed that getting as much system-wide coverage is the most important element that we need to address. And this is also one of the reasons why the Fast Forward plan calls for being assuring that we are no more than 2 stations away. That in and of itself addresses system-wide coverage. If you're no more than 2 stations away, that in some way make sure that whether you're in distant, the outer parts of Queens or in Upper Bronx, you still have a station in your area. As you know, the 100-key station plan was very, very heavily concentrated in Manhattan. And now as we move to Fast Forward, we have some discretion as to filling in some of the map. So as we go through each station group, the stations are grouped by borough and by what we call a grouping. So anytime there's a gap of 4 or 5 or 6 stations where there is a lack, meaning you are not more than 2, you are more than 2 stations away, we will show you, hey, these are the 4 stations that we have to pick from. So in some cases, you'll see, hey, we have to choose one of 4. Hey, we have to choose one of 2. Hey, we have to choose one of 5 to fill in the map. We will go through each grouping, and we will open up the floor for conversation. We'll ask you to raise your hand, tell us which station you think is important, because although we have lots of data and we have lots of information, the communities are ultimately yours. You live in each community. You know best why a given station may be important. Maybe the data suggests ridership is big at one station, but you believe as a consumer with a disability that, hey, that's not the best station. A better station is this station because of so-and-so. And that's ultimately what we want to hear from you all. Before we get started, I just want to recognize a few elected officials that are here with us today and their representatives. So we have Paul Goebel from Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer's office. Thank you so much. Are you here? Just want to recognize you. Sorry, don't see, but thank you for coming. We have Grace. How do you say that? What is it? Grace what?
Grace Aguilaros.
Grace Aguilaros from Senator Ramos's office. We have Jackson Fisherwood from Assembly Epstein. We have Nan Blackshear from Borough President Eric Adams. Thank you. And we have Patricia Scavo from Community, the chair of Community Board 16. 15. Sorry, 15. Thank you. Then we have Frederick Klein from Assemblyman Dinowitz. We have Alexis Stykes from Assembly Member Joanne Simon. We have Shelby Garner from Congresswoman Carolyn Molina. Maloney, sorry. Sorry. Just trying to read them off. Maria Henderson from Councilman Udonis Rodriguez. Bryce Pierre from Assemblymember Dick Godfrey. And who's that? Sorry. Asher Brown from State Senator Brad Hoylman. Thank you all for coming. As you all know, the elected officials in the state play a huge role in pushing fast forward, literally, and we're super excited to have their support. So without further ado, let's get started. So go to the first slide, meaning stations. So this is a list of stations that are currently in progress. As you look around the room, you have maps. Maps that are kind of set up strategically. You also have the presentation in your hand. Is there anyone who doesn't have a presentation that needs one, that would like one in their hand? Raise your hand. Sure, we'll get you one. Anyone else that would like a copy of the presentation? There's also a hand in the back of the room, please. There's a couple. Keep your hands up, and we're going to pass them out in a second. So these are stations that are currently in progress. Meaning they are part of the current capital plan, the 15 to 19 capital plan. They have different stages. Some are in design, some are in construction, some are being moved forward, but they're all funded, and you will see them filling in the map anywhere within a year or 2 to 3 years. So you have Greenpoint in Brooklyn, Astoria in Queens, Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn Museum Station in Brooklyn, Bedford Park Boulevard, Gung Hill Road, Chambers, 57 7th Avenue, 86th Street in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Bedford Avenue on the L, 1st Avenue on the L in Manhattan, New Utrecht Station, 62nd Street Station, also on the Sea Beach line, which is in kind of the Bensonhurst area of Brooklyn, 59th Street on the R, Rockaway Parkway on the L train, Times Square Shuttle, 8th Avenue and Sea Beach on the N line, 68th Street Hunter College, Court Square on the G, Woodhaven, 149th Street Grand Concourse, the other 149th Street and Grand Concourse, Westchester Square. Sure, absolutely. But 1 second, we just asked that you take a mic because we're live streaming the event, and also for the sign language interpreters and CART to be able to interpret. Please speak into the mic.
The 59th Street station on the R, is that the R and the N?
That is the R and the N.
Okay, and 62nd Street D, the West End, not the Sea Beach.
No, Sea Beach.
Sea Beach is an N. It says D. 62nd Street D.
It's both. You see,
both?
It's
Okay.
both. Yes. You see the 60th Street on the D, and then on the N,
New Utrecht.
8th Avenue Sea Beach on the N. You see that?
That's a transfer point. It's going to be a transfer point.
Yes. The whole
62nd Street
complex.
station is a D and an N.
Yes, the whole complex will be connected. Right? That's correct, Griselda, right?
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, there's another comment. Just let us give you a mic. Go ahead. We just need the mic for the live stream to pick up the audio.
Sorry, it's a little, okay, I'll stand as best as I can.
No, Sid, we don't want you to get hurt. Careful.
I know. If nobody, okay. First, Alex, the Rockaway Parkway L train is actually accessible. It's one of the few stations that
is level.
That you can go through. I mean, maybe you need to make the gates a little wider for some of the wider wheelchairs, but you still can get through. There's no problem. But at the 62nd Street, it's the 62nd for the D train, because I'm on old Brooklyn. But for the N train, it's New Utrecht, and that's a transfer point. So I hope in the future you could put that together.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I'm pretty sure that whole complex is being done that way. It is. Yes. Hopefully soon. What was that? Got it. Yes. The whole complex will be done. So we have one more comment in the back. Oh, a couple comments on the side. Yes. Please pass the mics to the folks that have their hands up. Yep.
Hi. I wanted to ask, I live in Senate District 22 in South Brooklyn. We have 12 stations and none of them are accessible.
We're going to be getting to South Brooklyn has many many groupings. So within about a half an hour to an hour when we get to Brooklyn, we'll be covering all of South Brooklyn.
Okay.
It is absolutely true that Brooklyn has a lot of gaps. So if you can keep your comments specifically to stations that are in progress, we'll take a few more comments. Yes, there are some hands in the middle of the room. Yeah. I think, do you mind going in the middle?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Factor. I work in Long Island City, Queens, and I use the Queensboro Plaza station. And every day after, I end up having to walk down 6 flights of steps from when I get off the train to the ground level. And when I called up the MTA, they said that it's not one of my key stations, and what they considered the key station at the time was Queens Plaza, which has an elevator. But my choices every day is either to walk down 6 flights of steps or to cross the whole Queens Plaza, which is unacceptable. So I just want to know if anything is being done for Queensboro Plaza.
Yes, we're going to be getting to Queens in a few minutes, and we'll talk about Queensboro Plaza. So I will just defer till we get there. For now, if anyone has a comment on a station that is in progress, Sarah, Gene's got a comment.
Hello?
Yep. Now, again, we are going to take as many comments as we can, but we do have a lot of regions to cover, so I'm just going to try to move all you folks along. Go ahead, Gene.
Is there a timetable for 95th Street?
Griselda, do you know that? Yep. Can I have a little bit more volume on my mic? Just a little bit. Thank you. Just so I don't project so much.
95th Street on the R? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's set to be awarded this year.
So if it's being awarded, that means construction will start this year. So it's probably a year and a half to 2 years out. Yes. Mm-hmm. One other question in the back.
Yes, hello. On the stations with ADA upgrades in progress, the slide you're on, it says the Bedford Park Boulevard station, the 4 train. That's different than the information we received earlier. We were told the upgrade was
I think
gonna be
that's a
on the-
mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, it should be the BD line, right?
The BD line. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
We don't want to make promises we can't keep. It is the BD. One last question, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. My name is Brees Pear. I'm from the office of Assemblymember Richard Gottfried. I want to say it's really encouraging to see Andy Byford here and the MTA putting a renewed emphasis on this long overdue goal of trying to make the system more accessible. I am asking about a couple of stations on the L line that I understand elevator work is supposed to be in progress, but they don't seem to be on the list, which would namely be at 14th Street and 6th Avenue. And also, I was under the impression that 14th Street at 3rd Avenue was going to be made accessible.
So those will be covered in our next slide, and you guys are very well educated on this. So I know this is going to be a fun meeting. The difference between this slide and the next slide that we're going to go into in a second is these are stations that are already in progress that you're looking at here. That means they're fully funded and moving forward. Now, as we go to the next slide, these are priority stations that are not funded yet, but at the same time, we are fully aware that we're going to be committing to these stations, and that's where the other L train stations that you mentioned are. So it's 6th Avenue on the L, as well as right. It's 3rd Avenue, Griselda, on the L, or first. Sorry, 1st Avenue.
Bedford on the L.
1st Avenue and Bedford, exactly. So those stations are part of the L train upgrade. Yes, some of them were part of a lawsuit that came out. So these stations that you see here have been identified preliminarily. These are anything that follows this point forward, just as needing to say, is not guaranteed, right? Because funding isn't secured. But these are stations that have been prioritized and that we want to move forward with. Everything that you saw on the slide right before is already funded, but we are getting ready for the funding announcement for the 2020 capital program, which is 5 years from 2020 to 2024. And we're looking forward to having a good allocation of funds for ADA, and all these projects that we're talking about tonight, we hope to include. But again, everything we discussed tonight is subject to funding, but we are really trying to show our commitment by meeting with you in advance thereof. Because to have a real shot at getting 50 stations in 5 years, we need to have these conversations. We need to be able to be ready to go as soon as the money drops. Because if the funds come in and then we take 6 months to select stations, 6 months to think about it, and we're a year behind, we will be falling behind on our commitment to you to get these stations done. So we're meeting with you, we're talking with you, but again, with the understanding that everything is subject to funding, but hopefully if that all comes through, all your feedback tonight that we get, we'll be able to move forward on stations. So if you look at this map of stations that's been, go back, sorry. If you look at this list of stations, there's a lot of half stations we've identified that we want to finish. So as you see, Avenue H, which is northbound only, which is in one direction, we want to do the other side. There's obviously Borough Hall, which there's a lot of work being done. So some of the stations on here present really unique opportunities where we have projects ongoing that we want to do. Some stations, some of these stations are needed for no more than 2-way fast-forward coverage, but there literally is no other station to choose from. For example, the way the map kind of works out, 36th Street on the DN and R line, that station is really needed. That's the only station in that area that would help us get the coverage. So take a look at some of these stations. We're happy to take some comments. By all means, we think that there are some really goodies up here. There's some big complexes. We're talking about the Metropolitan Lorimer Complex, Broadway Junction's on here, some other ones. Again, these are all very likely to be some of the first that are moved forward. They may go in different orders based on when it's ideal to launch a project or not, but this is what we're looking at. So if anybody has some comments, we'll take some. Sure, we have a comment in the front.
Canal Street for the queue is also half station, like half accessible.
Right. We will. You know what? We'll definitely note that down. Is Canal Street something we've been? Yeah.
I mean, it's a central station.
Right.
Like, you get to the rest of Manhattan from there.
Absolutely, and I think it's important. We're happy to take it into consideration. We'll see what the study comes out in demographics, but that's a very, very, very good point.
Good evening. My name is Orbit Clanton from Perception for People with Disabilities. Before we continue on with this, which is really great and it's important to all of us, and you were talking about the previous slide, which was funded, exactly where is the funding coming from for all of this? Because we don't want to go through this exercise and then it finds out that it's not there, given that the entire system to be overhauled is like, what, $60 billion?
Sure, I'm happy to take that question. The funding is, as you know, all funding for the MTA pretty much comes from the legislator up in Albany. The city does play a role. There are several different places, including the federal government, that generally supports our capital programs. All those discussions are happening now. Obviously, as consumers who care about accessibility, whether you're advocate or just a consumer, you're welcome to reach out to your local official and say that accessibility is important and you want to see the programs funded. You're absolutely right. None of us hope, I mean, I work here at the MTA, New York City Transit, every day. So does President Byford. We don't want to be doing this in vain. We don't want to be doing this as an exercise that leads nowhere. We really believe we're going to get the funding. We want to show you that we're committed to it. And that's why we're here. Yes, we don't have the answer yet as to what exactly the number it is that's going to be allocated, and that's going to be determined by elected officials. But as the person who is one of the leaders here on accessibility, I don't want to just wait to see what happens. We want to get out ahead of it. We want to bring notoriety to the issue. We want to go to elected officials and say, we had this meeting and we identified 50 of the greatest stations that everybody agrees on. We want to say that we have the support of the community. And that's where we want to get to. We don't want to sit back, quote unquote, no pun intended for us that are sitting, but we want to get ahead of it. We want to lean into the issue. And that's why we've invited you all here today. I think that before this meeting, such a meeting where we're openly talking to you, taking your feedback, and including your decisions hasn't happened. And we want to change the conversation, and that's why ultimately we're all here. Oh, lots of questions after that comment.
Yes, hi, my name is Dustin Jones. I'm with the Center for the Independence of the Disabled New York. I have a two-part question. I see that Broadway Junction on the J and Z line is on here. Now, for many years, I've been actually advocating for that station to get an elevator, and they've been doing so much construction in that whole entire area, and I was told that it wasn't feasible. Now, for some reason, it is. I wanted to know what changed, and two, if you guys can put a station there, Union Square for the 4, 5, and 6, it is disconnected from the rest of the L, the N, the Q, the R. Why can't that one be in the works as well?
Absolutely. Do you mind if I take your second question first and then come back to the first one? So Union Square, very difficult station. As you probably see in there, it's a curved platform. There's not a lot of space. Certainly Union Square may be possible, but where we're looking at, the reason we're having this conversation, the reason we're having other meetings is in many stations it's possible. But let's say Union Square costs $200 million, $250 million, something like that, whatever that number may be, and don't hold me to that, I'm just quoting it. Is it really more important to do Union Square, that specific line, or potentially get 5 other stations somewhere else? If everybody in this room wants to say do Union Square, and we have a limited pool of money, we're 100% in agreement. But it's a very difficult station to do. It's a curved platform with limited real estate and challenges. So, sure. I'm about to get to Broadway Junction. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was going to get to your question. So,
in reference to our Broadway Junction, but I'm glad to see that you guys got it done. So that's why I was asking, in reference to Union Square, because there is an elevator there that's always out of commission. So why not connect, if there is a way to connect the 4, 5, and 6?
I mean, we will absolutely look at it. It's not that anyone's not aware. We know it's an important station. It runs on the 4, 5, 6 line. Obviously, it's a big deal. It connects the east side of Manhattan. We will take a look at it. The comment to look at it is important. There is land, real estate issues around that station, all kinds of different things. I'm happy to have a longer conversation about it. Broadway Junction, let me just mention that real quickly, and I'm going to be very, very upfront. I mean, there is a legal definition as to what infeasible means, right? In terms of the ADA. And in terms of, I know, Dustin, you're involved with legal organizations. So when lawyers say infeasible, when that's used in a lawsuit, that is part of the ADA definition of what is considered infeasible based on certain criteria. I always ask the agency, and whenever I say letters, look, yes, when there are lawsuits and we have to say infeasibility, it's within the confines of what the ADA says. But from a real life perspective, oftentimes it's about money, right? Broadway Junction is a big complex. It's going to be very expensive, but it's a major hub on the east side of Brooklyn. We want to try to figure it out. As we've said, these stations here, we believe are a priority. They may or may not make it. If Broadway Junction, the entire complex, costs $300 million because of the way the stations are outlined, the real estate, the infrastructure challenges, then we will have a conversation with, ourselves internally and then with all of you. But I think what you said is that Broadway Junction is important. We appreciate that. And 14th Street is also very important. So we're looking at those, but we want to get value for our money. If we can get 5 stations as opposed to doing one very difficult one, then maybe that's what you tell us. So one last comment, I do want to move on.
Sorry. One last comment, though. If it's a real estate issue that may or may not be an issue at Broadway Junction, the MTA owns a lot of real estate over there, like parking lots, the depot. Why not move some stuff around over there?
Any real estate that the MTA owns is generally not a problem. Oftentimes, our elevators and subways come up into buildings, come up into the middle of the street. It's not like the subway matches directly with where the platform is. A lot of times, there are private owners that own property where we have to literally spend millions of dollars to buy property just to be able to place an elevator on the street. So our own property is generally not an issue. I wish that most of our real estate issues were our own, but it's generally where we don't own the real estate on top, but we own it on the bottom, and that creates the challenge. Okay? So a few more comments on these, and then we'll move on. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael Iron. I'm the second vice chair of Community Board 18 Brooklyn. Canarsie. I take the L train every day, and I use that hub. I go up to Broadway Junction, and that is tragic there. I don't know if you guys ever come down there. When the escalator goes down, it's 134 steps on the escalator steps. The other steps is like 69 or 71. I can't remember. And I also want to say it's a damn shame what happened to that girl last week when she fell. Okay? What's happening at Broadway Junction is inevitable. Something like that's going to happen there. It's inevitable. And I don't know. You guys send somebody to my community board like twice a year, and you spin things. You say you're going to do this and do that, but nothing ever happens. I know you came down and you mentioned about Rockaway Parkway, and you don't need anything there. Broadway Junction is a necessity. You need to fix it. You need either elevator or fix that escalator. It's amazing. You can do things down at Lorimer Street, but not that end of the L. That's what gets me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As you see, both Lorimer and Broadway Junction are on this list. It is a priority. We have every intention in the next capital program of finding a way to do it. Well, it's not funded because we're still waiting.
All right, let me ask you another question. How many times have you come down to my board and testified?
I am more than happy to come down, sir. I have.
Not you.
Oh, to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, numerous times, right?
Well,
you do what you got to do, but it's not right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we have a few questions in front. We're going to get you next, miss. 1 second.
Okay, so I have a question. So do the ADA upgrades, are we going to be talking about only physical accessibility for people such as in wheelchairs and signage, but also there's a small card, a pocket guide about accessibility in terms of deaf friendliness. So how are we talking about in terms these systems and the station upgrades and as they apply to deaf people and accessibility for deaf people in the station? Is there a separate list for that? I'm not really sure if this is are we going to be having this conversation about every single station or if it's going to be talked about separately in the course of this meeting. So I wanted to get clarification about that.
Great. Thank you for that question. The truth is, this is certainly about the next stations to become ADA compliant. The challenge and why they make the papers and why there tends to be some controversy is elevators cost tons of money. They require moving heaven and earth. Major investments. I mean, average of $50 million a station or whatever it is. But my unit, my team, and as the person here who's responsible for accessibility, we look at every station and every decision from the perspective of 4 disability categories: mobility impaired, deaf or hard of hearing, blind or low vision, as well as those who may have intellectual or cognitive disabilities. We absolutely are looking to upgrade what we do for those who are deaf or hearing impaired as part of every station. So whenever we do an ADA upgrade, we put in a slew of 15 plus features. we have recently been reviewing our features, and I hope within the next year to announce that we're doing 20 or more features every time. That includes everything from tactile warning strips to better signage to an array of different features that help all persons with disabilities. Oftentimes when we do a station renewal project, or meaning where we're doing a rehabilitation, whether we're touching walls or ceilings, features for those who are blind or deaf are always included in that project, because candidly, those are a little bit cheaper than spending millions of dollars on elevators. So that is absolutely part of the conversation. Any station that is here will get that, but truth be told, many more stations will get that, because putting in platform work, platform edge work is something we can do without closing a station down for 2 years to put in an elevator. So those features for those specific categories are absolutely being considered. I've had meetings and we have meetings coming up with the Hearing Loss Association of New York, many deaf advocates. I mean, Christina Curry's here all the time. We have other folks who are bringing all this to our attention, and it's absolutely being addressed. Yes, question from the woman in the front.
My name is Blanche Louise Pelton-Bush. I'm from Brownsville, and you've been talking about the elevator going on Livonia. I live in that area. You came and you did a job on the train station, and you did a shoddy job there, and you have not even mentioned anything more about the escalator or elevator. You have not mentioned it. And you keep coming in, sending different people. This is before you came and before you came. Every now and then you change people, so therefore all your things go out the window on what happened in Brownsville. Do you not think that we use the trains? Everybody pays. We pay. Our money is the same color as yours, and we deserve the same thing you got in your area. We deserve that.
Absolutely, miss. I agree with you. I mean, the truth is, first of all, yeah.
And to
look, first of all, you see Livonia.
But you have not came to Community Board 16. I haven't seen you there.
Well, we had a community engagement on Fast Forward out in that part of Queens, in that part of Brooklyn, actually, in the Canarsie area. But at the same time, as you see, Livonia and Junius are on the list here. We've studied them, and we have every intention of trying to move forward with those. I mean, look, I use a wheelchair myself, right? I live in the Bensonhurst part of Coney Island part of Brooklyn. It is the same truth that even in my part of Brooklyn, not every station is accessible. My personal experience is similar to that of your own, and we want to move forward. We understand the frustration. We understand that your point that, hey, you guys keep saying things and you haven't done it. President Byford and myself have been a year, even less for myself. We want to get out there and speak to you. I don't think a meeting like this has ever happened before, and we hope to keep it productive. Yeah, sure.
It has not happened before, not with y'all, not with you two.
Okay. So may I just make a comment? And I think you raise a really valid point. Your money is the same color as ours. You're absolutely right to say that. The one plea I'd make, and we'll keep going, we'll keep hearing your comments. We haven't got yet to the 50 stations. I can't turn the clock back. As you rightly said, I've been here a year. Alex has been here a year. What we have now that we didn't have a year ago, we didn't have him for starters. We didn't have a survey going on, which is now ascertaining what is going to be the cost and feasibility of every single remaining station. We didn't have the fast forward plan, so we didn't have people talking about that. We didn't have the GSM's, group station managers, going around making sure that elevators are kept in service and kept clean. And so the list continues. But what I can't do is, two things things really. I can't turn the clock back. So, but if you want, we can carry on with the feedback about what didn't happen in the past. My proposal is we get to saying time out. You're preaching to the converted, right? We get it. We're the messengers. We're on your team. We want to do this. But the second thing I can't do on my own, the question came up about funding. I can't guarantee that funding. I have a powerful position as president, but what I can do is make a big load of noise about it. Put together a plan that's the talk of New York City. Put together a plan that's like the genie that's now not going back into that bottle, that politicians are going to find it very hard to say no to, right? But what will the actual quantum be? I can't say for certain. And in fact, in many ways, you guys are more powerful than me. For one simple reason, you have a vote. I don't. I can't vote on this. You can. You can lean on your elected representatives and say they need to get some money going for Fast Forward. So I think we're a powerful team. You are preaching to the converted. And, you know, to be fair to Alex, people say he hasn't been to certain meetings. There's only one of him, right? I'd love to clone him. I'd love to have 50 of him. But I haven't figured that out yet. But I've been to Broadway Junction. I've seen what it looks like. Absolutely. That is a major complex that should be accessible. So that's what we want to talk about tonight. What are your 50 next priority locations?
Can I say one more thing?
One short one, miss. We do have a lot of stations to get to.
One more thing. I want to know, because you just came into it, did you come in empty-handed? There was no funds when you came into it? Because what happened to all the funds before you came in? Didn't they leave you something? Didn't they leave you something?
Yeah, they did. I mean, so we have an existing capital plan, and there is still money within that existing capital plan, which is why some of it, we put up the slide earlier, some projects haven't yet happened, but they are funded. The difference is, of course, we're going to get a capital program, but what we're arguing is it should be a way bigger capital program, and it should be much more biased towards accessibility. That's the difference. So again, you know, that is what we're doing on your behalf. Will we succeed? I don't know, but we're going to give it a damn good go in the next 8 weeks, which I suggest to everyone. The next 8 weeks are critical because it's the run-in to the vote in Albany. Do your thing, do your bit, help me out. You got the vote, I don't. But what I can do is be very persuasive, pitch the case, and you know, do what fight every inch of the way to get the funding, not just for accessibility. There's no point in having an accessible station if the train service isn't working, but all the other parts of Fast Forward, including resignaling the subway, getting more buses, and everything else that we need to do.
I have a question.
So I'm going to ask to move on. We are not going to get to, we haven't even started the Bronx or a single borough yet. So, you know, I will stick around at the end and take more comments, but let's move on to our first grouping in the Bronx. So the maps that you see on the sides as well as on the screen, you see an area that's blue, purple, orange, and green. So what does that represent? That represents the areas on the map that currently are needed, where we need to pick a station in order to achieve no more than 2 away. Also, on the map, you see red stars. The red stars are stations that are currently in progress, that are being designed. Then you also see silver stars. Silver stars are stations that were identified on the priority list, correct? So we're going to go to our first grouping. So this is the Woodlawn grouping. So if you look on the map, if you go back one, Mira, this is the purple grouping all the way at the top of the 4 train over there on the Jerome line. And if you go to the next slide. So here we have Woodlawn, Mosholu Parkway, and Bedford Park Boulevard, Lehman College, all on the 4 train. One of these stations is needed to achieve no more than 2-way coverage. As you see here, we've identified average weekly riderships, local activity centers, connecting bus lines, the senior population. This is within half a mile of the station based on the census data. People with ambulatory disabilities based on census data, average weekly reduced fare riders, how many people are using reduced fare Metro cards, that's seniors and people with disabilities, as well as daily access ride pickups in that area. These are just 5 categories that we've identified for you all. Obviously, there's a slew of others, but we are happy to take comments on which one of these 3 you all think should be prioritized for moving forward in accessibility. Any comments, please? Thank you.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Eric Dinowitz. I am the chair of the Aging Committee on Community Board 8. This summer, I worked with the chair of Community Board 7, a number of local... Can you, Dustin? What's up? Including him, a number of local organizations, and we collected over 2,000 signatures in support of the station at Mashalou Parkway. There are 2, I mean, you could see it right there. There's 2 hospitals there, thousands of people there. And I think something we see, I know a lot of details aren't clear, but that awful event that happened last Monday, there are people who are sick who need to go to their appointments, who either can't or could sustain injury if they had to go up those stairs. So I just want to rise in support of Mashalou Parkway. I also want to point out, yes, Mashalou Parkway. It's very clear from the numbers, but it's what's right. You're missing a couple things up there. There's Tracy Towers is the 2 tallest buildings, residential buildings in the Bronx. A number of disabled seniors live there. So I think that should be added to the activity centers list. And there's one more thing I want to say. If I know we don't want to go back to it, I want to look forward, and I'm looking forward to your priority list. I don't know how many people here are from the Bronx. Yeah, you can, I guess not a lot. Okay. Usually Bronx people are a lot louder. That's why I'm confusing. There's only one Bronx station on your priority list. And if you look in your book, this book, there's only 1 page of accessible stations in the Bronx. So I just I just thought I should point that out, that there are not a lot of Bronx stations that are accessible. And it doesn't seem to be a priority based on the previous slide. But back to this slide, Mashalou Parkway. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that feedback, sir. That's the kind of feedback we're looking for, meaning you know your local community best. You know where the tall buildings are. I do want to say that the slide before, it's not based on priorities that we think are the most important. They are either needed for no more than 2-way coverage. They're either major projects about to be happening there. They're either part of the L-Train project, which was moving forward, or they're major complexes that are still outstanding and missing in certain parts of the boroughs. So the major priority that we have is no more than 2-way coverage. So even the slide before that suggests we need those are prioritization, that just means we have very little decision wiggle room in terms of not doing those stations. If we miss some portion of the stations on that prior list, we won't get our no more than 2-way. It doesn't mean that we're not prioritizing the Bronx. No more than 2-way means everywhere everywhere in the boroughs. So every place is treated the same. Okay? Just want to clarify that. More comments on this Woodlawn group? We have some hands?
Yes. Yes, so I do live in this area. Okay, so I live in the Fordham area, and I take the 4 all the time. And often I do see on the signs, you know, they'll have the signs about, oh, the next train will be in 4 minutes or whatever. But I do hear that an announcement is being made about something, maybe stations being skipped, but I think all trains need to have visual announcements about when stations are going to be skipped, because sometimes I'm sitting on the train and it's peak hours and we're just going and skipping stations, and I didn't hear the announcement. I heard that some kind of announcement was happening, but I didn't hear what it was that was being announced. And that's a general deaf accessibility thing that needs to be approved station-wide. And the gentleman next to her is saying I agree with her.
Yes, absolutely.
And I often miss appointments because of that. It's a huge problem.
No, this is a feedback that we get often. You know how many, I'll be very candid, how many folks who are deaf send me pictures of the Listen Up for Train Crew announcements picture. I get those pictures on my phone and my email once a week. I understand that's an issue. We are working with our subways team and our subway car folks to find a solution. The cars of the future will have screens, LCD screens, much more ability to have more room for text and speech-to-text kind of applications, 100% on our radar, and we totally get it. didn't hear it often. So thank you for bringing that up. Some more comments? Yes.
Hi, yes. My name is Zenaider, and I live in the Bronx. And one of the places he did mention was Mashilla Parkway. Yeah, they need an elevator there, but also in Parkchester. 'Cause Parkchester is a very busy area, and they have Macy's there, and also you can get off there in Parkchester and get on the bus, because in 2 blocks down there's another area where there's a shopping area. So Parkchester would be one of them, because the stairs are very deep down, and like someone had mentioned in the past, that's very dangerous for a stroller too.
Yeah, Parkchester is one of our other groups, and we're going to get to it in a second. Meaning it's another grouping in the Bronx, but thank you for that feedback. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Helen S. Jarrett, and I'm from Community Board 5 in Brooklyn. East New York is an area that has been neglected for so many years. From when you get to Sutter-Rutland Road all the way to the end at New Lots Avenue, where people get off to take the bus to get to the airport with luggage, there is absolutely nothing there. There's a whole neighborhood that's shut out of any kind of elevators or escalators to give us any type of relief.
Miss,
And
we have 10 groupings in Brooklyn that we're going to get to, and several of them are New Lots and East. So we're absolutely going to get to them.
Those stations are super elevated stations. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 10 groupings in Brooklyn, so Brooklyn's going to get a lot of action tonight. There's a lot of gaps in Brooklyn. Thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Frederick Klein. I'm working for Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz. I just want to also echo the support for Mosholu Parkway, and I would like to point out that your census data on the ambulatory concerns, I think that it is worth considering the patient load that North Central Bronx and Montefiore Health Systems and all the doctors that are around there would add to that, because those people might not live there, but I know for a fact there are people who go up to that area and would use that station if they could get off the train for an elevator.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that's the kind of local feedback we're looking for. We do understand that data won't tell us everything. So let's move on to our next group. So our next, if you have comment, we do have to move on. We have a lot of groups to cover. So we're still staying in the Bronx. Yeah, I know. So if you guys want to make comments, please write on your comment cards. If you wanted a specific station in Woodlawn, feel free to put in several stations on your comment cards. Just make sure we can decipher it. We'll be looking at all the comment cards as well as your oral comments. So our next group in the Bronx is the Tremont group. Go back to the map. So if you see on the map, the Tremont group is right there in kind of a greenish color. It's probably more green on your presentation, and that's on the BD the BD line, correct? And if you go back to it, so here you have 182nd, 183rd Streets. You have Tremont Avenue. You have 174th, 175th Street, as well as 170th Street on the BD. You see all the numbers here. You should also be aware that. This is my list, right? Where's my list? Yeah, Tremont is also an express stop, which obviously is an important thing. Lots of connections. So we're open to comments on these stations. Please let us know what you think.
Yes, I'd like to just reiterate what you said of those 4 stops, which I'm familiar with. The logical best station would be Tremont because of what you just pointed out, that it is an express stop. And given that resignaling will happen at some point and stations are shut down, having accessibility at an express stop really would benefit the community, because as you shut off the uptown side, you still have access to either the express line or the downtown, vice versa. So I strongly recommend out of those 4. And where it's located, Tremont Avenue is one of the main thoroughways, such as Fordham Road, so it gets a lot of traffic going back and forth there. So that would be a really good stop to consider.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Hi, Alex. I'm going to speak on 2 things because the Bronx Advisory Council person couldn't be here. She's concerned with there's one station that is, I'm glad you have Tremont, but Fordham Road also, it's yeah. Oh, I didn't know because it just shows. But there's one thing also I agree with the gentleman said earlier with these stations. Since the train does represent the B comes into the other end of Brooklyn, there is concern of the accessibility that people need to get on connecting to the bus up to a point. There has been the numbers I think you need to recheck because during weekdays and weekends during the warmer weathers, because stations that connect to the Bronx Zoo or Fordham University, because they do have events over there, or Botanic Gardens, or heading to the Orchard Beach, needs to be rechecked because numbers there do go up a little more higher, and accessibility level also goes up higher too. So we need to look at that.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll absolutely note that and take a look. I mean, obviously we've identified some stations here, but we want to hear feedback from you all which ones are important. So we'll take one more comment on the Tremont group, and we have two more groups in the Bronx. Go ahead.
The Fordham station, if it's going to be wheelchair accessible, want to put the signal saying put those things saying when it's coming because it's not there.
Sorry, was your comment that why don't we do the signals? What was the comment again? I'm sorry.
The comment is the subway station in Fordham Road is the signal stations. They should be more bigger and more compliant.
Fordham Road.
Fordham Road, yes. I mean, sir, we'll definitely take a look at Fordham Road, as he said, and see what's possible there. Why don't we'll take one last comment, Sarah, in the middle on this one, and then we'll move on.
Yes. What happened to Westchester Square in the Bronx? You have the.
It was on one of our earlier lists.
Okay,
It's on already.
I just wanted to make sure that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's in the presentation. Westchester Square is happening. Yep. So please feel free to write on your comment cards. We're going to move on to our next group, which is Parkchester and Soundview. If you can go to the map real quick. So if you look at the map on the screen as well as the maps that are set up, you have maps on the corners. I don't know if you can all see the Parkchester. Yeah, point it. Yeah, so if you see Parkchester right here, that's Parkchester, St. Lawrence Ave, and Morrison Ave Soundview. So if you go. So you see some numbers that we've gathered here, and yeah, this one is so we'll take some comments on this group. You guys have all this in front of you. Feel free to share the info.
Am I going hard? Yeah, hi, yes, I'm Dustin Jones, Center for the Independence of the Disabled again. My comment pretty much is, when it comes to Parkchester, if you guys do nothing else, you desperately need to do that station because it's already leveled to the ground. They have the ticket agent is low to you, so you could be able to talk to him or her. And they have automatic doors, but there's no elevator there. So if you do nothing else, definitely I would agree with Parkchester. Also, I've been a victim of not having an elevator there in the sense of when I'm trying to get to Manhattan, that BMX 6 is horrendously slow when it's off-peak hours. So that's something to definitely think about. You know, if I have a doctor's appointment or anybody who lives in that area, bad enough you can't go to an accessible, not accessible station in Parkchester, but you have to wait about an hour for the next bus. Thank you.
All right, Parkchester, East 177. Thank you for that comment. That again, it's your local understanding of the community that really helps us. Any other comments on this group? Right, it's an express. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ridership numbers you can tell are 4 times what the other stations here are. There's one last comment in the back on this.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Hi, Alex. it's a good idea you do put the elevator for Parkchester. As you see, the BX36 bus happens to go as well as the Q44 to the Bronx Zoo. And that's a major attraction and accessible. So I would like to see it. And also representing my families with developmental abilities who live in the Bronx, the chair, my counterpart in the Bronx wasn't able to be here. You have a lot of families who have developmental ability that live in the Parkchester area, and they do need true accessibilities because it's multiple disabilities run in the family. So if you could do that, and also it is a track, you can take, if the elevator's there, you can then take those buses up to the Botanic Gardens, the Bronx Zoo, Fordham, and a few other places that would be very helpful. And also connects to, there's a big shopping center a little south of the 6, which happens to be a good one.
Great.
Yes, I'm a Brooklynite, and I still know that.
There you go. When we were coming to this meeting, I was going to be like, is the whole room going to be screaming for I want this station, I want that station? We're getting consensus across the board. It's beautiful. Too early, right? I haven't gotten to Brooklyn, right? I just figured I had this opportunity, so I was going to use that comment in case half an hour I couldn't say that. Let's go on to our next group. Thank you. Any comments, put on your comment cards. So we have one last grouping in the Bronx. What is that one called? Yeah, the Mott Haven grouping. So you see it down below in the lower right in orange. You have 149th Street, 143rd Street, St. Mary's. You have Cypress and Brock Avenue. So if you go to the numbers on these, where's this? Yep. Yeah, a lot of So a lot of different criteria here. Obviously, East 149th Street has a couple stations not there, but on the parallel line near Hostos that's in the works. Lots of different criteria in this group, but you guys see the numbers, so we're more than happy to take some comments on this group. We have a comment in the back, and then we'll take a comment in the front.
First of all, to the President and Alex, thank you so much for having this first meeting. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the station that's buried on East 149th Street and Grand Concourse, is that up there?
That station is already, that was on one of our other lists that's already in the works, right, Griselda, right? Yeah. Yeah, that station is in progress.
It's already in progress.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, because, whenever there's construction on the trains, they dump us on buses, and then they dump us off on 149th Street and Grand Concourse where we can't go anywhere. Everybody else goes down the steps to the train. So thank you for letting me know.
Yes, that station is in progress. Hopefully, that's a toughie, but we're going to make it happen. Yes, comment in the front.
My preference would be 143rd Street, Alex.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, hello. So for Brook Avenue, that station in particular, I've noticed that it's incredibly popular for people coming from schools, people buying food, bringing heavy bags from grocery stores. Is that avenue being considered for an elevator installation?
If it's on this list, it's for you to tell us that you think it's important. So we will take your vote as you'd like to see Brook Avenue, and it's important to the community. So thank you for that. Any other comments? One more there.
Yes, I also agree with Brook Avenue. All of them are really good candidates. But
there's some goodies on this list.
Because, one, the proximity to Manhattan, the neighborhood, and the development that is happening there. The borough president has promised affordable housing there. I spoke with him about people with disabilities. So that station, if they had an elevator there, would be really good.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other comments? We'll take one last one from Chris, and then we will move on.
Alex, there's one station that is not on the list, but it is represents a lot of disabilities and seniors in this station. Maziga, I might be saying it wrong, so somebody help me correct it. Thank you.
There you go.
Because there's four things. One, at least someone agrees with me. The Bronx Developmental Center is also there. Two, you have a school that is, I think it's a District 75 school there. And three, the only bus that goes over there is the Yes, but also the BX. No, that's another station. There's a BX4 and BX4 Apple that if it ever shows up. The problem is if some of the staff who are self-advocacy groups who do go to that Bronx Development Center, it is very hard for them to travel there. You might be near the Q44 Select, but there still needs to be something over there.
Well, right next to it, Westchester Square East Tremont is being done. As you see, it's a red star. But yes, that station is right below it, and we're happy to take a look at it. But I did want to just mention that the next station over is in progress, which is Westchester Square. So thank you. So we're going to move on. Again, any further comments on these as on your way out? Whether, in half an hour you have a different thought, please put them on your comment card. And we'll be more than happy to take your feedback. And thank you for all your positive feedback. And for being here. I mean, this is really what we work hard. The team has worked incredibly hard to present all this data for you. There are literally 50 columns of data that we reviewed, and we try to narrow it down to ones that make sense and ones that you could really look at and get an understanding with in terms of making this a 2-hour meeting. We could do this for 3 weeks. So next up, we have Queens. So take a quick look at the coverage groups we have in Queens. We have the Jackson Heights group in blue. We have the Rego Park group in orange, and we have Ozone Park in purple. Those are regions that are needed for no more than 2A coverage. So let's start with our Jackson Heights group first, right? Yes. Jackson Heights is first. Can I see mine? So in Jackson Heights, we do have a lot of stations. We have a good amount of stations to pick from in Jackson Heights. It's 5. So we have 65th Street on the M&R, Northern Boulevard M&R, 46th Street, Steinway Street, as well as 36th Street. Obviously, the Steinway Street ridership is significantly higher than some of the others. But we are open to feedback as to which ones you guys think are important in this important area in Queens. Alejandra in the front. Somebody has a mic there? Sarah, right here. Yep. Go ahead.
I mean, I know the numbers support it, but Steinway Street in general is such a busy area. And on a personal level, the fact that growing up in that area, never had access to anything but 3 hours on a bus into Manhattan, that would be my personal preference, and the numbers support it. So.
And it's a win-win. Thank you for that.
We have a general question about Queens.
Sure, we'll take a general question about Queens. No problem.
Hi, my name is Valerie Joseph from Brooklyn Center for the Independence of the Disabled. Queens Village, I live in, and there is actually only one station that I can get into, and that's the Parsons and Archer. What about 179th Street? Did you guys think that you could make a station there?
Parsons and Archer. You're talking about the EJ.
Yeah, no, I know that one is, but is there any other place that you could put a station besides just there?
I don't know that we can change a station, but if you see a station that is up there that you would like to suggest that we do in that area, by all means. You're suggesting that another station, or? Yeah, absolutely. Look at the map, see which ones aren't done. You are welcome to tonight. Tell us any station that you think would help your community. We have a comment there or no? No? Anyone else on this section of Queens? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I live in Brooklyn, and I wanted to ask a question. Why isn't an elevator is built over at 53rd and 4th Avenue? I mean, that's where I take the train every morning.
Absolutely. We're going to get to Brooklyn in a few minutes, but 4th Avenue, 59th Street is currently being done, and that was on a list prior. And I know you're asking 53rd. I know.
Street and 4th Avenue.
Absolutely. So we'll get to Brooklyn in a few minutes, and we'll see the different areas we have to cover there. So anyone else on the Jackson Heights group in Queens? We have. We'll take 2 more comments, and then we will move on.
Yes. So I have really 2 questions. Maybe I missed the slide, but Jackson Heights. I've noticed that Jackson Heights actually is a big hub for deaf and hard of hearing visitors who are often very lost. And a lot of these people are people who have never come to New York. They're people from out of town. They might have trouble navigating in the first place. And they're trying to take these buses from point A to point B, and they don't realize where the stops are going to be for the deaf school. The Lexington School of the Deaf is in that area, and so that's why it's attracting a lot of deaf people, but they're missing their stop. And so it would be really helpful if that station had a sign that said where the stop is going to be for Lexington School of the Deaf, so that they can be aware of that and know where to get off. That would be really important because that's a hub. And the second question that I wanted to bring up for you, it's not on your list, but Flushing, Queens.
I think that's in one of the next groups that we have coming up. No?
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. But about your comment on the Lexington School for the Deaf, absolutely, we will look into the station and see if we can get some signage to address that. That kind of feedback is super helpful to us. Signage is quick wins. I mean, it's difficult, a very large system, but we will do what we can. There was one more comment on this Jackson Heights group, I believe in the back. Thank you, sir.
I'd like some clarification for the Amazon. Is that near Steinway or is it 36? Can you go back on the map? Because that's opening up opportunities for people with disabilities to work. So the station that is closest to that facility, definitely.
I mean, I think 36th Street, we'll definitely note your comment. It's probably closer. I believe the facility is more in the Long Island, what was that? Yeah, Court Square, which was on another list that we had, right? And it's more in the western part of Queens. So we're going to move on to our next Queens coverage group. Again, if you have a comment, feel free to write it down. Our next coverage group is Rego Park. So if you can pull up the map real quick. So if you see the Rego Park area up here up front, it's these 5 stations, and I'll just read them out. If you go back, it's Elmhurst. We have 67th Avenue, 63rd Drive, Rego Park, Woodhaven Boulevard, Grand Avenue, Newton Avenue, and Elmhurst Avenue. So we are, some pretty high ridership numbers on a lot of these stations. Pretty popular line. But we are open to take comments as to which ones you think would be helpful.
I have a comment here.
Dustin Jones, Sydney. Queens Boulevard in general, but especially at Woodhaven. How is there not an elevator there already?
I'm sorry, but
your good friends at United Spinal who made the 100 key station agreement didn't include that one, and that's how it wasn't. But I do understand why it's an important station. But that is the answer to your question.
Hey, Alex. One thing I'm going to mention, glad you have this side of stations. Woodhaven Boulevard is one of your stations that you have the mall, all the buses, major congestion. People are coming from the Rockaways from that end who are taking the SBS buses. And I agree with Dustin. They should have been an elevator there, as well as Steinway, because Steinway Avenue should had an elevator because, as I said before, you have a lot of disability in that part of Astoria, Queens, and Rico. Especially the numbers are even higher, very higher than that. So we need to look at that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Everyone's go ahead.
I'd just like to real quick put in another bid for Woodlawn because
You mean Woodhaven?
Woodhaven, I'm sorry. Yeah, because not only does it have so much flow of literally everybody, it's also about equidistant from the two hospitals on this list. So,
Got it. Thank you for that. Any other comments on this group? Another group of consensus. Look at that. Well, consensus that we should have already had one.
Sorry. Obviously, we want all these stations to have them. And, you know, as someone who travels to the area, yeah, I would put in another vote for Woodhaven, but I've also been someone who's had difficulty getting to and from Elmhurst Hospital Center, both as a patient and a visitor. So, you know, if we had to say what do I want after Woodhaven, I would say maybe Elmhurst Avenue.
Okay. Thank you. That's allowed. One last comment on this group in the back. We'll get you, Deborah. We'll do two. Yeah, I know you will. Chris will have a nice long email for me in the morning.
Okay. All right. I would like to really see the elevator where the 7 and the E, F, R, and M train meet at Roosevelt Avenue. That happens to be right by Elmhurst Hospital.
But that the 74th you're talking about, or no?
That's right, because
that
let me
station is
tell
accessible,
you,
no?
not completely. Even though, let me tell you something. Even though you have elevators, I have had to keep company to people with wheelchairs. You need more elevators. You need to make it even more accessible, because you have to go from one elevator to another, and then instead of the persons with disabilities using those elevators, it's people with their shopping carts, and not all of them they may have hidden disabilities, but they're making it harder for persons who cannot go up and down stairs and ambulate. They have to wait more than a half an hour. So even though it's not on the list, that needs to really be fixed. Also, at the Met Stadium on the 7th, even though you didn't get there yet, there's no true accessibility out unless there's a game. And then you got to go in a roundabout way to get out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, 74th is accessible. We know you're suggesting it needs more. I have been at that station for sure, and it is very heavily used because there are several platforms there. So that's noted. And on the 7 train, we've discussed, the Mets Willits Point stop. We continue to try to find ways to work around that. So those are noted, and thank you for that. One last comment on this group, and then we'll move over to our last Queens group. Oh, no more comments? All right. Thank you for that. Those are all noted and great to hear. So we have one more in Queens, right? We have one more in Queens, which is which is our Ozone Park group. So there, as you see, we have 80th Street, 88th Street, Rockaway Boulevard, as well as 104th Street. So if you go to the chart. So, for those of you that say we don't look in the outer parts of Queens, this is your chance. I mean, we do need coverage here in order to achieve our goal. So, if anyone wants to suggest a station in this grouping, please let us know. Yeah, there he is. Chris, you're batting 1,000. Go for it.
1,000. because I'm familiar with Rockaway Boulevard Station, because the number there, it should be even higher, because you have a major bus transfer connection, and people who like doing the warm weather or holidays, there's a major catering halls and a bowling alley over there too.
Well, as you see on our list, there's certainly the bus connections are represented on the chart. There's easily 10 of them. So something we are certainly taking into consideration. Intermodal stations in general are a big deal. We want to create as much system connectivity as we can. So thank you for that. Any other comments on this group? Sure. Yes, exactly. There you go. Knows this stuff. We had a comment in the front.
So Rockaway Boulevard, I noticed that I ride from Manhattan to the airport very often, and sometimes I get on and there's no announcements that they're going to go on a detour. They're going to go to another area. And so what we need is a sign that's going to say when it's going to go to JFK. And I almost missed a flight on more than one occasion due to that kind of confusion. And it's very important, especially over there, that announcements before the divergence of the two routes. Is it going to Ozone or is it going to JFK? It's very important.
Got it. Thank you. And I reiterate, our comment that we have to, we're looking into making sure that our announcements can be in textual form about service changes and other things. So thank you for that. And those kinds of areas where trains do run, alternating routes or different routes, it's very important. Any other comments on this group, or everyone wants Rockaway? Dustin, go ahead.
Although it's not here, I want to make a comment about the A line overall.
Sure.
My mother lives in Far Rockaway. There are only 2 accessible stations in Far Rockaway. And I prefer to use 116 because I know I won't get stuck on an elevator there. Why isn't there more accessibility in Far Rockaway in general? Another thing, too, is that you do have options when it comes to taxis, but it's also a taxi desert. I have to take the 52 Select bus back to what I like to call civilization before I could ride anything else. So why not have more accessibility than only 2 stations in Far Rockaway itself?
Well, as you saw on the list earlier, can you go back to the priority list? All the way back. Yes. Yeah, no, I understand. So as you see on here, I believe we have Beach 67th on the A listed as a station that we're considering. So certainly one more. I understand there are more stations there, but Beach 67th is being considered. And if there's another station in the Rockaways that you think is, you can go back to the map, the regular map. If there's another station there that you think would be helpful, by all means. In terms of your comment on taxis, as you know, it is difficult for us to tell taxi drivers where to go. They are, that is determined by they're independent contractors, even via the e-hail program. But we are certainly working. We have our dedicated carrier fleet on Access-Ride where we can tell folks where to go. We continue to study how taxis work throughout the city to see how we can get them to cover different regions. But that has been a challenge that we've heard from many of our Access-Ride customers, that there aren't taxis in certain areas. And that is something that ourselves, as well as certainly the TLC and the City of New York, who work on providing accessible service, are looking at. So thank you for that. Next comment. Any other comment on this group? All right, one last comment, and we're gonna move on. We've got 10 groupings in Brooklyn. All the Brooklyn folks, they're coming up.
Good evening. My name is Michael Howard. I do live near the A line that goes to Far Rockaway, but about Rockaway Boulevard, that station should have been accessible ever since they first had Q52 and Q53 select bus service.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, moving on to our next groupings. I believe we are going on to Brooklyn. We do, yes. So as you can see on this map, we're going to spend a good amount of time in Brooklyn, and then we still have some Manhattan and Upper Manhattan stations. So, as you can all see here, we have lots of areas. We have the green grouping, which is Brighton Beach grouping 1. We have Bensonhurst grouping, Borough Park group, Bensonhurst 2, Bedford, Stuyvesant, Carroll Gardens, Maspeth, Bushwick, East New York, and 2 in East New York. So all the Brooklyn folks have at it. We will start first with our first grouping, which is... Mira, can you flip? Go ahead. Go to the next one. So we've kind of go back for a second. We've broken down Brooklyn into 4 different sections because it's so large. So we're going to start with the southern Brooklyn station. So we'll start with the Brighton Group 1. Go ahead. So in this station, we have Neck Road, Sheepshead Bay, Brighton Beach, and Ocean Parkway. This is my neck of the woods, but I don't get a vote, so it doesn't count.
A vote here.
You so get a vote. Wait, you so get a vote. I mean, you ultimately decide. But I was thinking the Q on Neck Road, that's a small station. Why not make it Avenue U and get the city to fix that darn sidewalk with the steps?
Okay. Thank you. We will definitely take Avenue U as a vote. I'm very close to Avenue U. And Avenue U is a major commercial district in that part of Brooklyn, for sure.
Hi, Alex.
Yes.
So we've been talking about elevators.
Yes.
But have we done a study on ramps? Out of 472 stations that we all know that the system has, there's got to be a few that could use a ramp. They're cheaper, they're quicker to build, and less maintenance than elevators.
Absolutely. Our study of all our inaccessible stations looks at ramps at every single station possibility. And the truth is, a lot of our stations are incredibly deep. If it's a deep station, putting in a ramp is often nearly impossible because it's got to come up somewhere on the sidewalk. We don't always have sidewalk space. Also, platforms are incredibly narrow. If platforms are narrow, it's difficult. But the consultants, the engineers that are looking at stations identify that every time. And even if it means sometimes, moving something to accommodate a ramp, we're open to considering it. We 100% understand that ramps have 100% uptime, right? So we'd love to give everybody ramps where possible, but according to the ADA reg, the length that ramps have to be often would leave the station. You're talking about several, blocks later, 100 feet later. So if we had all the real estate in the world, we'd have more ramps. But we look for those opportunities wherever we can. We're looking at innovative ADA designs for stations. We're doing all kinds of different studies. I mean, we have spoken to you all that our intention is to deliver 50 stations in the next 5 years. The most we've probably ever done is about 17 or 18 or 19 at the most in the last capital program. So we are hoping to double our pace. We will have to innovate, be more aggressive, and find unique ways to make stations accessible. But we're going to try. Go ahead, Ed. You have another comment? Go ahead.
Just want to say for the record, I vote for Sheepshead Bay.
All right. Sheepshead Bay has got quite the crowd here.
Yeah. My name is Sharon Shapiro, director of Yada Hadaka, the Jewish Disability Empowerment Center. We need an accessible station at Avenue J.
It's another group.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No worries. Don't worry. Keep going.
So I'll wait till that group, but
Okay. We will note your Avenue J vote for now, but that grouping will come. Thank you.
Alex, first, before I do anything, the B36 bus does not go to Ocean Parkway over there. It does not. That's Brighton Beach Avenue. It's the B. You have it correct with the B68 and the B1. I'm always there all the time. But I'm going to say this for Neck Road. Neck Road, because originally was the railroad. If you see on the northbound side, there's these former stone steps. There you have room to actually make a ramp. Unfortunately, it'll only be northbound. I do vote. I have 2 votes. I want Sheepshead Bay first, but I also want Avenue U. And third, I would love to see Brighton Beach or Ocean Parkway. Because honestly, let me tell you how many people with disabilities live in the Trump and Warbass houses, all the apartment buildings there, and you know how inaccessible it is. And that stupid escalator that was built at Brighton Beach should never have been built, because once you get off the escalator, you have to walk up another 2, 3 steps. Then you have to go up 2 flights just to get to a train. So Sheepshead Bay is 1, Ocean Parkway's 2, Brighton Beach is 3, and then Avenue U. But we also want Avenue, but we do need Avenue. But before anyone says that Neck Road is not a use station, you haven't been there in the morning when the crowds are so packed that we have to be careful that we don't fall on the tracks. So it is a far more use station than people realize, even though no buses go there.
All noted. We have 4 votes on 4 stations.
Hi, Teresa Scavo, Chairperson, Community Board 15, which represents Southern Brooklyn. On an earlier map, you had northbound Avenue H. How that made it on this list, I can't figure out. Because the transit riders on Avenue and Neck Road and Sheepshead Bay surely outweigh northbound Avenue H. So today, I am here to fight for the seniors and the disabled that live in my district and have no accessibility coming from Manhattan Beach and Sheepshead Bay and Plum Beach. First of all, you need to take a bus to get to a train in Southern Brooklyn. If you live in Gerritsen Beach, you need a bus to get to a train. Then, if you do catch that bus, you miss the train. I do it constantly. I need to access Avenue. I have a heart condition. It is very difficult for me to climb stairs. So I would prefer to walk to Sheepshead Bay and hop on a train because I can't access Kings Highway, and that's the nearest train with an elevator. So please, if you're going forward, look at Avenue. Look at Sheepshead Bay Road. This is what my community needs.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I will say one quick thing on Avenue H northbound, how it got there. Avenue H is currently accessible southbound. There was a development that was built there that put in an elevator. We have identified half stations as stations that we want to fix and prioritize. If there's an elevator on one side, we want to do the other side. We feel like it just makes sense. That's how that list got on there. So you can get all, there's an elevator on one part of Avenue H. We just want to finish the other half of the station. That is the reason that it's a ramp. I apologize. It is a ramp. That's why we want to make the other side of Avenue H accessible. That's the reason it's on there. But absolutely, Avenue U, Sheepshead Bay are noted, and thank you for your comment.
Question?
Yes.
So if you're trying to say that you're trying to put an elevator on one side or the other, can you try to do that like between 59th and 4th and 53rd? Like, can that be possible?
The reason why in some cases we have one side, generally when we do projects ourselves, we always do both sides unless there's a unique opportunity. Oftentimes there are third-party developers building huge buildings or huge complexes near our station. A lot of times the law requires that if you build near our station or you touch a part of the station, you also have to create ADA access. So sometimes they're within one side of the station, not the other, but we take those opportunities because they are quote unquote inexpensive. It's a developer that's building an elevator for us. So that those are why you see half stations in our system sometimes. Obviously, if somebody's willing to do it, we're not going to stop them, but we have every intention of finishing off half stations when we have the opportunity. In terms of 53rd Street and 59th, 59th absolutely is already a key station, and we're looking to do 36th Street. I think 4th Avenue and 53rd Street absolutely is something we'll consider. We'll put it on the list and see what the study comes out and see what we get from all our other criteria. Okay?
I don't know what
Thank
took
you,
so-
sir. Go ahead.
It took so long to do Sheepshead Bay. It's been years. It's a very high catastrophe area. The problem is when people have to get back to Sheepshead Bay that are in wheelchairs, they have to get off at Kings Highway and take 2 buses to get back over there. So what took so long to do something like that?
We were waiting for Andy Byford. Thank you for your vote on Sheepshead Bay. Let's move on. We got 10 stations in Brooklyn. Please write your comments on the card. Thank you so much. So our next grouping in Brooklyn is our Bensonhurst Group 1, which is the red grouping right there, which you see. So we'll read those stations out. This one. So it's 20th Avenue, Bay Parkway, Kings Highway, and Avenue U on the end. This is a different Avenue U. So we're all about taking comments. Do we still have Avenue U votes? Go for it. We have a comment in the front. Somebody have a mic right there? Yep.
Please, Avenue U on the end, like make that a high priority. That would be so great. Because the B3's in front of there, and then the B100 is on 86. Yeah.
All right. We got Avenue U votes. Anyone else want to talk about these?
Sorry, you scared me. Alex, as I live in that area between the N, the F, and the Q.
Chris, where don't you live, Chris?
No, I never said I live in other boroughs, but I do live in the Brooklyn. You know that.
You
'cause I
have
see you.
multiple residences. Tell
Yes,
us.
but let me just, the only secret I'm saying is Bay Parkway, Kings Highway, Avenue U, on any train station connects to a bus should have already had an elevator, because those numbers to me should be even higher on a weekend, because on weekends, as people like to go shopping, and the ridership on the N and on the D line have increased more higher than ever, because as the Chinese community and other communities are coming in and more people are moving into Brooklyn, there is more ridership coming in. I'm glad that 8th Avenue, New Trick is getting it, but again, Bay Parkway, Kings Highway, Avenue U definitely needs it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. A lot of passionate people in South Brooklyn.
Hi. So I wanted to put in a vote for Kings Highway. And the reason is because, if there's somebody who has disability and I see, there's an appointment, there's a client, and I'm working and I'm going out to that area of town, Kings Highway is the one that actually, is the most close and would be the most beneficial in terms of accessibility. It's close to a lot of other areas. It's close to the streets. Kings Highway is close to the highway itself. I mean, it really needs an elevator there. And, instead of going all the way to the 3 train, which is what I've been doing now, going all the way to the 3 train to get my client and then going all the way over to Kings Highway where they live. So my vote is for Kings Highway. It's really been a frustration for me.
Great. Thank you for that. Absolutely. Any other comments? All right. Oh, one last comment. Oh, Jean. All right.
Hi, Jean Ryan from Disabled in Action.
Jean, you were saving your one vote, huh?
Yeah, I am. I haven't been able to ride the subway for 25 years. I rode it for 25. I haven't been able for 25. And I really vote for the Bay Parkway, 22nd Avenue, because it's not that far from Coles and Caesars Bay. So you can either walk or take a bus. And DOT has such and MTA has such horrible bus stops there where you take the B1, which hardly ever runs anyway, So, getting off of the B1 is really tricky right there at Bay Parkway. So if somebody could take a subway there, getting off wouldn't be a problem at the horrible bus stops there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Gene. We're going to move on. Again, feel free to use your comments. Please, if you want, does anybody need more comment cards? Let's hand some out. We've gone through a lot of groups. Anybody need more? Anybody need more? Want to raise your hand? We'll give you some more cards. Oh, you never got one. All right. We're handing out comment cards. We'll take a minute to hand them out. We're absolutely going to be reading all these, so please feel free to write as much as you need. Yep, so we're going on to our next group. Our next group is Borough Park. Borough Park. Oh, no, we just did Bensonhurst one. Yeah. Is it? Sorry. Go back. Yeah, Borough Park. Yeah, Borough Park. Yeah, go ahead. No, we did Bensonhurst group 1. Go ahead. Next. No, we're not. Go back. 1. Yeah. Go ahead. Click. There you go. We're right there. Yeah. So now we're on Borough Park. We have 18th Avenue, Avenue I, another Bay Parkway. This is Bay Parkway on the F, and then we have Avenue N. So again, feel free to look at the maps that you have in your corners. You have the maps in your presentation, and we have some data here for you all to look at. So we have a comment in the front, Sarah.
Well, since we're discussing the F train, I'd like to say that Avenue U, they fixed the F train, the station, and did not include an elevator. Like, that's ridiculous. So, I would like to see that. Finally, I've reached out to my state senator, congressperson, my assemblyman. I tried to reach out to the mayor. I'm now going to try to reach out to Andy Byford. So, yeah, please.
Well, Andy Byford, unlike those other folks, heard you here in person. So we will take that comment and note as we look at further stations. Thank you so much.
I would like to put in a vote for the Avenue I F station because that's right by ShopRite, which is probably one of the biggest grocery stores in that area. And it's also right by a B11 stop. So from there, it's easy to get on a bus to go to the rest of that neighborhood in Borough Park. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. We got comments in the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Albert Mercado, Community Board 3, Lower East Side of Manhattan. The reason I like to comment is I have to leave a little early. One thing that I have noticed, I came in here with the intention that Mr. Byford was going to be doing all or most of the talking. Putting aside all of the immense information, which everyone, at least me, very appreciated, the most glaring thing that comes out to me is that Mr. Byford is listening. He hasn't said probably 200 words, if that much. And that, to me, means a lot. He's strictly just listening. He's absorbing it all in, and I hope it continues this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
My name is Andrew Kurzweil, advocate. I want to put in for Bay Parkway on this station. Also, something that's missing from your list of activity centers, you also have Erasmus Hall High School football field. That's right there on McDonald Avenue, right there.
Yes.
So that should.
And I played high school football there as well. often. So oversight. Thank you for that. And is that the station that you think is most important on this list?
I would
Your vote?
I would say on this list I would say Bay Parkway because of the transfer point, the bus transfer point, and also for students to go to the football games and everything, because they do have to go to the football games. It would be it would be helpful, and
Of course. People with disabilities don't only go to hospitals. We go to football games too. We have another comment. Oh, we have one in the front, and then we'll get you, Deborah.
Two questions. If they ever did start the F Express again, Kings Highway would be the obvious place for an elevator. And the other question is Bay Parkway dash 22nd Avenue. 22nd Avenue does not exist.
Yeah, it's just Bay Parkway.
It's just Bay Parkway.
Yes.
They actually took the signs off that station like 10 years ago, but maybe 100 years ago it was called 22nd Avenue.
Yeah.
Does not exist.
Yeah, sorry, just we were a lot of people involved in getting all this together, and the marketing folks. We should have crossed that out. It is Bay Parkway Station.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have some really knowledgeable folks in this room. We're getting fact checked, but we need it. So thank you.
Okay, Alex.
Yes.
Another boo-boo. At Avenue Y, the B6 bus does not go there. It's only the B11. Now, I'm going to tell you why I think these two stations are tied. 18th Avenue and Avenue I. Both of 18th Avenue has the B8 bus that ends up going to the VA hospital, a very important site for people with veterans who need to use the hospital. The 8 goes directly there. The 11 goes to two hospitals, Maimonides as well as Lutheran. The other reason why I'm saying these two should be tied is it used to be known as UCP New York City. It is now known as ADAPT. They're actually smack between 18th Avenue and Avenue I. They serve people with developmental disabilities and a lot of physical disabilities, and they really do need those elevators at both of those stations equally. And that's why I cannot put the other two, because those really are serving a large population of people with disabilities.
All right. Thank you for that. We will take 2 votes on that one. I'll take one quick comment on this. We have a lot of groupings and about half an hour to go. So there's a comment right behind you on the left side. We'll just take one quick comment. If you guys don't mind just keeping your comments a little bit brief. We still have 6 groupings in Brooklyn, Upper Manhattan, and hopefully we get to Staten Island. It would be bad to leave them out, but we'll try.
I'll be brief. I'm Jennifer Van Dyke. I'm with the Elevator Action Group at Rise and Resist. It's a methodology question. I'm not understanding if the goal is to have stations, accessible stations, every 2 stops within 5 years, how are entire lines left out, and how will even picking one out of each of these groupings, that won't accomplish that goal. So I'm just trying to understand the methodology involved in this approach tonight.
Sure, absolutely. The statement is not every 2 stops. The goal is no more than 2 away. So based on these groupings, if you select our data folks here at Transit, if you go back to the map for a second, actually, let me show you visually. Yeah. So if you look at where the existing ISA, the accessible logos are on these stations, as well as the ones that are in red, right? You see the red ones, those are already in progress. Even if these are done, which we know they will be done soon, these groupings identify areas that have gaps of about 5 or 6 stations. So if you're no more than 2 away, if you land in the middle between a station that is 5 stations apart, right? If there are 5 or 6 apart, if you land in the middle, if we do that middle station or we do the station to the right, one closer, that will make you no more than 2 away from either station. So picking any of these stations here, for example, if we use the Neck Road, Sheepshead Bay, Brighton Beach tranche, Ocean Avenue tranche, right? That grouping. if you pick any of those stations, you will end up no more than 2 away from Coney Island Stillwell Avenue, or alternatively, you end up no more than 2 away from Kings Highway on the B or Q line. So that is the methodology, and that's how we've kind of drawn the map. And in some places, you do have options, and that's why we're talking to you all tonight. I think I explained that. All right, we're moving on to our next grouping. We're going to go to like double jeopardy. We're going to move a little faster. All right. So our next grouping is Bensonhurst grouping number 2. Here you have Kings Highway on the F, which the gentleman in the front spoke about. We have Avenue U on the F, Avenue X on the F, and Neptune Avenue, which is near those Warbass Trump Neptune Avenue houses. So we have a comment in the front. We'll try to limit to 3 comments per grouping at this point, just so we get through. Thank you so much. We'll take one in the front.
I think I mentioned this before, but Avenue U on the F, I vote for that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other comment here? Yes, Chris, and then we'll get you. Yes, Teresa, we'll get you.
I'm going to say also, because this is, I did mention it earlier, but the one thing that I'm going to say, Avenue X and Neptune Avenue, you have Coney Island Hospital. And I did mention this to you, Alex, and Byford, and as well as Andrew Albert. We have a lot of people uses that hospital. You have a major senior in that area, as well as on the Q line that connects to the next stop, West 8th Street. But the question is the numbers, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, Avenue U on a weekday is much higher than on a weekend, but X, if people are coming to work and going to that hospital, that I know a fact, a lot of them do use it on that, and I'd like to make it clear that on Kings Highway, you do have the 82 SBS and the 82 local, but up to a point, sometimes you have to, a lot of them are going towards to the Q train because waiting for the F train, or pray to God if an 82 ever shows up on a weekend local, you see a lot of them going to the Kings Highway Station on the Q. So we need to look at the ridership on that.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for that. We got you down. We got one in the front here. Miss? One last comment on this one. You guys are so knowledgeable.
Teresa Scavo, Community Board 15. I think your numbers are clear cut. Kings Highway is a major hub. Whether or not it's a senior, it's a person who has to get to work, and sometimes you can't make those stairs. So I would say your numbers prove it out. Kings Highway, Avenue U, Avenue X.
All right.
Thank you.
We got to vote for the numbers. That's great. Yes. All right, we're going to move on to our next group. Thank you all so much. So our next grouping is kind of Bedford-Stuyvesant portion of Brooklyn on the G line. If you go back to the map, it's Bedford-Nordstrand. You see Bedford-Nordstrand. Where is it? Right there. Yeah, all up top on the upper right corner here, and Clausen Avenue. So from frequenting this area of Brooklyn, certainly Bedford-Nordstrand gets most of the action, but we're happy to take some comments and votes. We have a comment in the back. Comment in the back.
Hi, all right. My name is Cade Smith. I'm a student at Pratt Institute, which is right around the corner from Classen Avenue. However, I'm actually going to throw my bid in for Bedford-Nostrand because as someone who uses a rollator walker most of the time to get to my student teaching placements and any museum visits that I have to make for class, the sidewalks getting to Classen or the Clinton-Washington stop are severely uneven, and on one side that's closer to the Institute, actually the sidewalk going to Classen Avenue is either entirely done in cobblestone brick type things that are murder to walk over, or the sidewalk is half blocked by the precinct's cars. So both the numbers and the accessibility of the sidewalks around the stations would lead for Bedford-Nostrand.
All right. Thank you for that. Chris, we'll take your vote.
Take my vote. You can take my vote, but the one thing I'm going to say about the Classen station, there is a group home that is up a couple 2 blocks from there, and as he gentleman just said, there is a college there. Also, the B48 bus does take a connection, but the question is the B52 is a couple more 5 more blocks from that distance. The 48 bus does connect to another part of Williamsburg, which is another 2 minutes. But the concern is you have a group homes in that area who need accessible train station. The 38 bus cannot take that heavy punch, as well as the 52 bus. The numbers are very high numbers.
Got it. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next grouping. Thank you all. So also in this part of Brooklyn, we have Carroll Gardens Park Slope. We have Smith and 9th, 4th Avenue, 9th Street, and 7th Avenue. Can you go back to the map there, Amir? So you see these stations there right here on the bottom of this portion of the map on the presentation. So on the FG lines. Yep, you can go back to the chart. So all 3 are goodies. I mean, every station is a goodie, but we're happy to take some comment. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Craig Wallenstein. I'm Abilities Inc. Viscardi Center. I'm actually a travel trainer, and I work with people with disabilities to learn how to use the MTA transit. And ironically, where I live in Park Slope, there are no accessible train stations anywhere nearby. So even just to go to work, I always have to take like a 20-minute to half-hour bus ride first just to get to a train. And 9th Street, Smith, that was redone like at least 5 years ago, I think. And I didn't understand why they didn't make that accessible at that time. I agree with the 7th Avenue. It's right by Methodist Hospital and nearby the park. But I'm just wondering with that, why they're not considering Prospect Park West on 15th Street by Bartel Bridget Square, where the movie theater is, right next to Prospect Park. It's very busy there, and it connects to the 68 bus, the 61 bus. You could also walk a couple blocks away and get to the 7th Avenue buses. I can't even go to Coney Island by train. The F train's right there, but I can't do it because
we are more than happy to take your comment on Prospect 15th Street. As I said, our framework is the no more than 2 away. So if you look at 15th Street Prospect on the map, it's 1 station away from Church Avenue. Nonetheless, obviously, we are here to listen to the community. So we will take that as your note. And I believe with the other stations, you said 7th Avenue or?
You said 15th Street Prospect Park.
Right. And I just explained that one. But within the 4 that...
It's
7th Avenue. All right. We'll take a vote for 7th Avenue. We are aware that there have been...
Can I just comment? Like, even Church Avenue, most of my work, I have to go into other boroughs. So, like, going towards Church Avenue is taking a bus out of my
Backwards.
way.
Yes, I understand. Absolutely. So, certainly noted, and thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback. And you saved your 1 vote. So, if you only vote once, it counts more. Just kidding. We got a few comments here. We have one in the middle.
Hi, Alex. My name is Shahana Hanif. I work with Councilmember Brad Lander as his organizing director. So I'm really happy and excited to be here and all the commentary. So just a few comments. I live off the Church Avenue stop, and I'm extremely grateful for the elevators there. It was tremendously helpful for before I got my both of my hips replaced. So thankful that the elevators are there on Church Ave. What we're doing for participatory budgeting this cycle is that we've included the 7th Avenue station elevator as a community push project because the community, we just had so many submissions as for the elevator on 7th Ave that Brad has decided to put down $250,000 and will match if this project wins through PB. So we're especially highlighting and prioritizing 7th Avenue off the FG. So just wanted to make that known. The ballot doesn't release until March 30th, but it's on our PB ballot.
All right, great. We're happy to take that into consideration. you folks have really rallied for 7th Avenue, as well as the folks in the Bronx on Moshalou. I mean, you have done quite a job in your advocacy.
Yes, I'm looking here. I'm seeing 4th Avenue, 9th Street, and there seems to be a slight omission of the R train. That's right, which would make that would make this a more feasible in that regard.
As a connection. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, we will note that in terms of 4th Avenue, 9th Street with the R connection.
Yes, and I'm from Community Board 7, and I also wanted to mention about the R train.
Sorry, I can't see you.
I'm right here.
Oh, thank you, miss. I apologize.
I'm from Community Board 7's Access and Ability Committee, and we're also very concerned about that connection with the R train. And it's actually, I don't know even how you're going to do it at that station, because I think it's the 2nd highest station in the city. And
You're very well informed.
you know, so, but we would like to see that done if possible.
Thank you. Yeah, Smith and 9th is the highest, yeah. All right, we're going to go to our next tranche. Please put your comments on the card. We've got 2 more groups in Brooklyn, I think, or so, and then we got to do some Upper Manhattan stuff. All right, our next group. Our next grouping is the Maspeth group. We've got Grand Street, Montrose Avenue, Morgan Avenue, Jefferson Street. If you can show us these on the map. Right here. You see these are all L stations that are needed for coverage. The nearest station is Myrtle Wyckoff. Any comments on these on the L train? Sure, we have one comment in the middle. We'll take Deborah, and then we'll take the gentleman.
Okay, I have my mother grew up right by those stations, as well as I have a lot of families with disabilities who live there. We do need, and I'm going to add it in, we need Lorimer and Metropolitan for the G equally, as well as Grand Street. There is the Eastern District High School is at Grand Street. You have students with disabilities who go there. Also, even though Myrtle Wyckoff has the elevators there's a lot of housing developments, and they go to Wyckoff Hospital. So you really have to look at that area too.
Got it. Thank you. We'll take one comment in the middle. The gentleman in the middle? No? You're good? Okay. So, as was noted, I mean, Maspeth is probably part of Queens. We should probably call this Bushwick or Bushwick 1. So sorry, a little oversight on our part in terms of where this neighborhood is. There are some folks that really know their geography. It's great. We're going to move on to our next group. Oh, one more comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead. The mic. Apologies for that.
Yes, unfortunately, the
Myrtle is a big transfer point with the J and the Z, and there's so many people with disabilities who live in that area. Near Myrtle, and it's a big transfer point. There's the J and the Z, and so I think that one is really important.
All righty. Thank you. Sir, we'll get one comment from you in the back, and then we do have to move on. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. Anthony Richardson, Perceptions for People with Disabilities. When it comes to the J line, I think that the station that needs an elevator should be the Gates Avenue station. If you look at your data, you see that most people will rather take Access-a-Ride than use their reduced fare card because the elevator, the stairs are so high to get up to the station. And by making it at Gates Avenue, it's an easy transfer point for people. Unfortunately, this Q24 and B47 buses run like snails. Really, you'll have to do something about that because I take the B46, and that select bus goes to DeKalb Avenue. You can get 9 buses before a local comes that's going to the bridge. And I think that's the reason why so many people get on the bus at Myrtle Avenue rather than take Access-a-Ride. But at all these other stations, People don't want to have to go through the trouble of going up that long flight of stairs to get a train. And by it stopping at Gates Avenue, it stops for the 47, the Q24, the B52. And if a person wants, he can take the 52 to the select 46. But there needs to be an elevator somewhere between Flushing Avenue and Broadway Junction.
Well, thank you for that, sir. You actually lead us into our next
comment.
Sure.
People have been talking about Broadway Junction. They're not thinking about the logistics, what goes into transferring that station into putting an elevator. You know, even my friend is a civil engineer, and he talks about how difficult it would be. So people should think before they start saying that it has to be done.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. And you actually lead us into our next group, which is our Bushwick group, where we have Chauncey Street, Halsey Street, Gates Avenue. We will note your comment on Gates, as well as Kosciuszko Street and Myrtle Avenue. So this is our next grouping in Brooklyn. We'll take 1 or 2 comments. We have one in the middle, and then we'll move on. We do have about 5 or 10 minutes left, so we have to. Don't want to keep you guys here all night.
Okay, Myrtle Avenue, you admitted the M train as a transfer point because that's where the M train splits off to Metropolitan Avenue. So that makes that a major transfer point also for people to be able to take either the M or the J or the Z.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, so let's move on to our last groupings in Brooklyn. As we heard before, East New York. East New York, here's your chance to vote on East New York as promised. So our first grouping in East New York for coverage is the East New York Group 1, which is Crescent and Norwood. So if you look at those 2 stations, please let us know, Crescent and Norwood Streets. Any votes? Powerful East New York advocates? Not that side. We're going to get to that side. We're getting to the other side in a second. Right. Okay. Oh, because it's more north, yeah.
Is that the reason that I'm going to say Crescent for this reason is the B13 goes to the Brooklyn Developmental Center and Ridgewood. So we need a good connection. And people then don't have to take 5 million buses to get to. They can just take another train with an elevator to get to the developmental center. Ask Sarah how hard it was to get to the developmental center.
Got
Trust
it.
me.
All right, we're going to move on to our next group.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
A statement, sorry. Dustin Jones, Sydney. In addition, I would like to say, not that, Crescent Street is actually very important because as of right now, once you leave Sufton Boulevard, there is no other accessibility. So I think it's very important. It would take a big load off of the Q56. And of course, like I said, it would also segue great into Broadway Junction because your important engineers have said it can be done. So I also would, just want to comment on that. Thank you.
All right, we'll take 1 comment in the middle, and we have to move on. There's a lady right there.
I'm sorry that I'm out of order again, but I have to get downstairs and I can't write my comment. So I ask again for Avenue J along the Q line.
Got it.
Because it's way too far from Kings Highway to Avenue H, so please have that.
Okay. No problem. And by the way, if you do want to write some things down, ask any staff member. They'll be happy to transcribe. But we have your vote down, and you spoke it very clearly. Thank you so much.
Sir, excuse me. I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Yes.
Once again, my name is Michael Iron. Excuse my ignorance. Maybe I missed something. We're voting on things. What about Broadway Junction? I got 2 things.
Yeah, we discussed Broadway Junction very heavily earlier.
I was here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Vote on it. I like to say, I'm not an engineer. I have no concept what goes on. I'm a layman. However, I'm a taxpayer. I've been using Broadway Junction for 30 years.
if you vote for ADA handicap accessibility, that'd be one of the most humane things you could ever do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we're going to move on to the other side of East New York. We have here Pennsylvania Avenue, Van Sicklen Avenue, New Lots Avenue. Can you take me back to the map? So as you see here, we have already identified, you see Junius has the silver star on it. So we are certainly shooting for Junius. But of these three, obviously New Lots is the terminal and connects to the airport and is important. But all these stations may have local reasons. So please let us know what you think. We have one comment right there in the back. Right there, go ahead.
With regards to what you have there on the paper, that is sufficient because I'm one away either which way, but that's not the main reason. I want to ask you a question. On the page where it has Brooklyn coverage groups in lime green all the way down to navy blue East New York, is that the order that's intended for these improvements?
No, no, no. The order, we're just going north, south, east, and west. None of the coverage areas are in order. It's just the way that we had to pick an order for the presentation.
Okay.
In terms of them moving forward, they'll be moved forward based on different kinds of reasons. Obviously, if we did all of East New York and Bushwick stations at once, we would really hurt the service there. So we space them out over 5 years based on which ones we're going to close at what time, based on which ones we're doing other work with. The projects will be prioritized in terms of timing based on how they impact service. But here they're just listed for presentation purposes.
Okay.
We have one comment in the front. Sorry, Chris. Yeah.
So I have to vote for all three of these equally. But, Pennsylvania Avenue, Van Sicklen Avenue, New Lots Avenue, they all need elevators. I mean, really, they really all must have it. And the reason is because, especially with New Lots Avenue should have an elevator because it's a main transportation hub going to the airport from that part of New York. And so, we really should consider thinking larger than just that little area, seeing where people are actually headed towards. So if you catch the bus to the airport from there, then it takes about 40 or 55 minutes from the train station to JFK Airport. But we're not really, the airport isn't considered here, and so that's why I want to put in my vote in that way. We need to reduce the number of people who have to rely on taxi and car services trying to get to the airport. It's way too far. So all three stations really need it, but New Lots Avenue in particular really needs it. I mean, people are really relying on taxi services and paratransit services to get all the way over to JFK, and that's just ridiculous. So the B-15 bus going to the airport as well is another big connection point.
Got it. Thank you for that. Duly noted. Got it. Absolutely. I mean, we always try to, prioritize terminal stations. I mean, they're important. They connect to a lot of places. So let's move on. I think we're done with our Brooklyn groups. The Brooklyn folks did great. Lots of people know they're Brooklyn. So we are now in Manhattan. So we're going to change over our maps. In Manhattan, we have mostly Upper Manhattan. Some of the lower Manhattan stations we had discussed, they're either part of the L train project, the 14th Street, some of the other ones, Essex Delancey. Most of our coverage gaps are in Upper Manhattan. So we're going to start with Washington Heights Inwood Group. Yes, we'll get you missed in 1 second. So in Washington Heights Inwood Group, you can click. We have, sorry, I can't read. In Washington Heights, we have 191st. We have 181st. We have 168th on the one. These are all one line stops. 157th and 145th. So we had some comments in the front. Where are the passionate Washington Heights folks? Yes.
I think the choice should be 145th. Simply because, you can make arguments for any of them, right. But 145th, the park that's there, there's, I know that area, there's many people who do have disabilities. It is on the Broadway line. It'd be an asset.
Thank you for that. We had one more.
It's a
Alejandra
general
in the front.
Manhattan question, general.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rory Munshine. I'm the social media chair for 504 Democrats, and this question comes from me as well as some of the other members in our club. So we wanted to ask about flood-proofing some of the train stations because it costs $67 on average for accessorize, and that obviously increases during floods or during rainstorms, actually, and that obviously affects people with disabilities' employment. And so we wanted to know about what the plans are to make the train stations more accessible for people with disabilities in terms of floods, as well as put in a vote for 14th Street and 6th Avenue, because and as well as Union Square, because that connects to so many different buses, including the M14A, the M14D, the 6th Avenue bus, and we really want to push for that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to. The 14th Street on the 6th, it was listed earlier on one of our lists as a selected station because of the L line. In terms of flooding, you want to make a quick comment?
Yeah, I mean, just as a brief comment, because obviously we need to try to stick to the agenda about getting your votes for accessibility. Absolutely, we're taking action. We have been for some years now to make stations more resistant to flooding. That includes installing grates on the sidewalks. That includes raising critical assets such as substations and other electrical components such that they don't get inundated with water. For the L-Line project, we're undertaking a whole bunch of resiliency activities to make sure that if, probably more likely when, another superstorm happens, the station, or rather the tunnel, simply won't get flooded again. The idea is to prevent rather than to mitigate. So in high-level terms, those are the kinds of things that we're doing.
I'm sorry. I just want to put in my vote for 168th Street on the one. The numbers are good for it.
Right. It has the AC.
It has the AC. But again, because it has the AC, you want to be able to have that.
Finish the job, make the
relationship there.
connection. Yes.
Exactly. I think it
Makes
would,
sense.
It
Yes.
would be very valuable there.
Cool. Great. Thank you. We're going to go on to our next group, which is our Harlem group. Oh boy, we have quite the battle here between Columbia and City College, huh? We have 137 City College, we have 125th, and we have 116th Street Columbia. We can go to the map real quick and show what that looks like. As you see it, it's right there, right following the group we just finished on the west side on that line. Any comments on these stations?
I get off for work at 110 Central Park North. It's in the middle of 110th and Cathedral Parkway, no elevator, or the number 6. It's a big juncture at the tip of Central Park. There's a pool there in the summer. There are a lot of community groups. There are a lot of churches. And I work at Northside Center for Child Development, which is down the block on Madison. There's no elevator there. It's also very icy. In snowy days, there's a huge gap between where the station meets the curb, and I have spoken to the Commissioner of Sanitation, and she said that is not within the purview of the sanitation to clear this long path. I am terrified. In those days, I have a bad back, a bad knee. I have my boots with cleats for stability. I often ask a younger person to just walk me to the curb. It's a very icy station, and it's never been addressed. It is the track from the station to the curb is not near any stores. They're in the other direction, and that has been a concern of mine for now many years since I've been working there.
And you're talking about Central Park North.
Right.
Got it. Thank you. That'll be our next tranche is a little bit closer to that, but absolutely we'll note that station. Thank you for that feedback.
I have a question.
Eli, yes, sorry.
Hey.
1 second, sorry. Eli, go ahead. Go ahead, Eli. Go ahead, yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Eli. I'm a board member with NYC Spinal. And in this group, it's either between my alma mater or where I'd like to go for grad school. But I would ultimately put my vote in for 137th, only because, judging from the map, for one reason, there was a gentleman who raised the issue about 145th. I think by deferring it to 137th, you address that sort of gap in that sort of no man's land of Harlem. And given what I think the next group will be, which is Upper West Side, it seems like there's some planned work on 110th, 96, and 86 on the BC. So I think it would make more sense to put it on 137th. And City College has a very huge disability population of students. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Alex, two of these three stations are underground, but 125th Street obviously is elevated. Does that influence the decision in any way?
Can I see my list? So on my list, I actually have a couple more fields than just because we can present everything. These stations have been studied by Stantec in terms of the possibility. 125th and 116th are both considered very difficult, as we call red stations. It's actually 137th that is considered the more doable one. So, yes, for putting in an elevator, the study has the study has looked at those. So, it's a criteria. So let's go on to our last group in Manhattan.
I have a question here, Alex.
Yes, sure. Question. Sorry.
I just want to second that 137th. I went to school by there, and I graduated already, but it's very convenient. And that stairs is crazy, in my opinion. So if you put an elevator in there, that would be very helpful. Just saying.
All right. We are here to hear that, so thank you for that. Eli has a second comment. You want to vote twice on this group? Go ahead.
Well, this is a different group.
Oh, sorry. Oh, we already changed groups. You're already ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I didn't read the stations. So this is our Upper West Side
As you like to
grouping.
make fun of me for, I'm an Upper West Sider.
Yeah, you're an Upper West Sider. That's right.
Specifically 86, which is what I would put my vote for, not because I live there, but because I think it's a major throughway from east to west, for one. You have the select bus service that services the Met, and there's a somewhat relative access to natural history, which reminds me of a story when I was, recently injured.
Oh, boy,
Keep it
story.
short.
All right, go ahead.
Keep it short. Recently injured trying to get to Yankee Stadium, and to me it seemed like a no-brainer that Natural History Museum would have an elevator. It's a major tourist spot, and I found out the hard way that there wasn't. But I'll settle for 86 because it's 5 blocks away.
All right. We have had a couple votes tonight on 81st Street Museum of Natural History. It does make sense as a major hub. Maybe not needed for coverage, but very important. Dustin? Yes.
Dustin, oh wow, that's in the wrong group. Sydney. I would vote for 96th Street. I think it would make a lot of sense because there is already the 1, 2, and 3 on 96th Street. So why not keep it going? And it would also take a lot of people off of, I would hope, the 96 bus.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? One more comment on the Upper West Side. Chris, go ahead, right behind you.
Oh,
I'm going to also say I agree with all three stations, but adding one more, 81st Street, American Museum of Natural History, which is a lot of people do get off that station. And since the M79 bus does parallel a little bit going to 79th Street, which it does go to a pair, and there's a lot of fancy, not just there's museums over there, but also I agreed with the other three, but adding also 81st Street, American Museum of Natural History, because they're all 4 stations on that line. You have a lot of accessibility people who need to get more access to those.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. We're going to do a last group in Manhattan. We've kind of passed our time a little bit, but we'll stay here and finish up. Anyone that has to go, please write your comment on a card or wherever else. We are more than happy to take it. Our next, I believe this is our last Manhattan group, right? Our last group in Manhattan is the Upper East Side group. You have some goodies here. Obviously, you got the 86th Street 456, the express stop. Certainly a big station. But we are open for comments on anything else? Eli, sure. Sarah, we need the mic. Yeah. Yeah. Eli, can we tell that you live in Upper Manhattan?
Yeah, I'm born and raised, and I get to stay in the neighborhood too. I just found out. So anyway, 110 is my vote because again, it's a throughway. If you're a wheelchair user like myself, trying to get to the west side, you could get off at 110th and take any of the buses that would take you westward. It would also solve the problem of the 2 and 3 issue with the 110 stop. It would also get me to work faster at times. And I think it would do great to sort of enhance that community of El Barrio and bring a little bit of flair and nice aesthetic to the area. Just my 2 cents.
All right. Your 2 cents are welcome tonight.
There's a place called the Axis Project nearby.
That place. I've heard of it.
And my vote, I say 86th Street. Because of the connections, you have the 4, 5, and 6. Again, it's about, I think, about the disability community, but also about moving and connection, and by that being an express stop. And 86th Street is another main large Upper East Side street, so I think a lot of use could be gained out of that.
Thank you for that, sir. We'll take one last comment on these right here. We'll take 2. I'll get you, sir. 1 second. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would also like to put my vote in for 86th Street. And it's not just because I'm an art student, I promise.
There's nothing wrong with being an art student.
I know, but it's the museum spot. Anyway, just because of the sheer volume of people and the large amount of bus connections that are possible from there, and it also pops you out a block away from the cross park bus as well, which is helpful for connecting both sides.
Great. Thank you for that. We've noted that. We have one last comment right here in the middle. We got your mic right there for you, sir.
Sorry about that.
All good.
Question: why I find that the most attractive station in this area is not on this list, and that is 81st Street.
You mean on the 6th?
Yeah, no, on the we're still on the Upper West Side.
That was the grouping before.
Oh, on the 6th now. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll go back. Can you go back on the map? I'll take a second to describe it. Go back to the map. So because 81st Street, and you can't see it on this map, but I believe it's 2 stations away from 59th Street, right? That's why it's technically not listed, and we had to pick a frame without giving you 350 stations to pick from, because we'd be here till the morning. We had to, frame ourselves within no more than 2 away. But absolutely, there's been a lot of strong feedback for 81st Street, and we'll absolutely consider it.
Yeah, because that's a very attractive station for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So if we're done with our Manhattan group,
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Dustin. Sorry.
Sorry, Dustin Sydney. I'm going to throw in a vote for all of these stations, pretty much, because there is a large number of people with disabilities who use the 4 and 5 and who live in these neighborhoods. So if you had an elevator on the 6th line, it would actually ease some of that congestion. Plus, on the, I always get confused, Lexington goes down. On 3rd Avenue goes up, and on the 101, there's also a lot of people with disabilities who use that bus line because they can't get to that neighborhood, myself included.
Right.
So there's a lot of times you have to let several buses go by before you actually get on. So I think any one of these stations would be a really good pick to have accessibility.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll make a quick comment on that. Even if you look at these stations from a ridership rank, 86th Street is the 6th highest ridership in our entire system. 96th Street is 25th ridership rank in our entire system. 110th Street is 85th in terms of ridership rank. So we totally get that these are all super important stations. 1 second. One more group left.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Teamwork in action. I'm taking over for this. So we've got one more borough to do. Anyone here from Staten Island? Let's hear it for Staten Island. Okay, right. So we're going to do Staten Island now. There are 3 groups in Staten Island, and I seem to be losing my voice. The first group is the blue group, and that is the Fox Hills group, which you can see at the top there. That is made up of 5 stations, which are Tompkinsville, Stapleton, Clifton, Grassmere, and Old Town. So use your format, folks. Anyone got a strong view? Deborah. Go for it.
Okay. Ooh, this I'm really honored. Thank you. Okay. You really need to have at the 2 stops that use the medical center, because even though they're buses, they would like to use the train. So I'm going to say equally Clifton and Tompkinsville because of the hospitals.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Others for this group? Anyone else? Sir.
Yep, coming.
This might be a little too expensive, but I think the tunnel that was started in 1924, connecting Staten Island Rapid Transit to the R line, should be completed.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I'll try and get another $5 billion. Or however much it is. I'll give it a red-hot go. Okay, any last votes for this group, the blue group? We'll move along then. In that case, we're now on the green group, which is made up of, 5 stations. Jefferson Avenue, Grant City, New Dorp, Oakwood Heights, and Bay Terrace. Deborah. I was going to say, I'm sure it is Terrace, but just going by what's on the paper, right?
Okay. One, again, I'm going to have to say equally Grand City because of the hospital. I will also say New Dorp because of the schools in the area, plus the, I'm trying to see the buses. Because if any of the buses that, those two at the moment. I have to check with my other friends from Staten Island.
Sure. Fill in a card. You can always send it in to us if you need to take time to talk to your buddy. Anyone else on this one? Sir.
Yeah. Hi. By the way, my name is Orbit Clanton. I would go with her. The rationale, because we're talking about disability, would be Grant where the hospital is.
Okay. We will do the last group then. This is the red group on Staten Island. And we have 4 stations. We've got Annandale, Huguenot, Princes Bay, and Pleasant Plains. Chris.
Hi, bye. The one thing there's concern is also not just the mall over there, but I think what Deborah's trying to say is with Staten Island is we have the other Staten Island called the Staten Island, the main source, which is the, help me say, someone say that. The developmental center is over there, and they do pile out between this section and the other section to connections of buses, because as some of your buses are more running in Staten Island, Staten Island Rapid train is the only train that runs. But we do need, all these stations need to be accessible or looked at as a ramp at some of these stations. Because when you get near the last stop, there is a new mall over there. And to connect that train to a bus to the mall, to 2 malls, a lot of people are, it's like you have to challenge yourself there. And we need to work on that. It's been very desert over there. And we have a lot of people with disabilities, the group homes are over there, and senior centers. So we really need to work on that.
Okay. Again, as part of the survey, we are looking at things like ramps. It's not all about elevators. If a ramp can go in at the right gradient, that's an option. So on this group then, do we have any more calls? Last calls for this group: Annandale, Huguenot, Princes Bay, Pleasant Plains. You agree with Chris. There you go. No family disputes tonight. That's right. There you go. All righty, so I think we're done. I might just make a closing comment. Yeah, good job. Give yourselves a round of applause. So I just want to make a closing comment. First of all, again, to thank Alex and the team. Fantastic job. These things don't just happen. They take time to set up. So to everyone who's helped out today, to the wonderful people who will be providing the Access-a-Ride services tonight, a big thank you. Yeah, absolutely. To our signers, amazing. You guys always amaze me at how you do what you do. And most of all, though, to you. To you for participating. We will act on your feedback, right? This is immensely powerful. We will add this to feedback we already have. You know, Transit Center did their piece. There's been various other bits of feedback. This is incredibly powerful, and this certainly gives power to my elbow to now go into bat for you, to go into battle for you up in Albany to get the money. So big thank you. I'll leave the very last word, though, to my good friend Alex.
I just want to echo Andy's comments. I mean, it's great to have you all here today. Obviously, it was a long meeting, a lot of material, but we wanted to make it meaningful. We did overflow you with information, but turns out you guys still know more than we do, so who knew? Look, this is really what the change is about, engaging you all, letting you into the decision-making process, hearing from you, knowing what you know, and like I said, you know, we want meetings like this that are positive, that change the conversation to be the new tone. And obviously, we need all of you to reach out to your elected officials and keep pushing. So thank you all again, and it's an honor and privilege to serve all you. Thank you. Good night. Get home safe. And all your Access-a-Ride vehicles are here. They didn't send them home. Yes, just leave your comment cards, and I'll be up here for a few minutes if anybody else wants to speak.